Welcome to this serene journey through the craft and dedication of a Viking shipbuilder, where each day unfolds with care and skill. Surrounded by the calming rhythms of nature, he works tirelessly, shaping wood, carving intricate designs, and assembling powerful ships meant for exploring vast, unknown seas. With each task from fitting the hull to preparing sails and rigging, his unwavering attention to detail ensures the ship is ready for its great voyages. As the days pass, the village around him pulses with life, yet the shipbuilder remains grounded in his craft, focused on the journey ahead. With each final touch and protective coat, the ship becomes a symbol of strength and connection, a testament to generations of skill passed down through time. This peaceful, patient process unfolds under the soft light of dawn, the steady rhythm of the craftsman's work, inviting you into a world of calm and reflection, where the slow passage of time brings a sense of quiet accomplishment and tranquility. As the sun rises over the still waters of the northern fjord, casting its warm golden rays over the village and the quiet workshop, the Viking shipbuilder awakens to a fresh day of work. The cool morning air, thick with the scent of pine resin, and damp earth invigorates him as he steps outside and takes in the serene beauty of the fjord. The workshop, nestled by the edge of the water, feels alive with the anticipation of the day ahead. The shipbuilder's hands, worn and calloused from years of dedication, move with confidence and purpose. Today, the task at hand is the rudder, the essential piece that will give the ship control over its journey, steering it safely through the unpredictable waters. The shipbuilder looks out over the fjord, contemplating the important role this piece will play. The rudder is not just a functional part of the ship. It symbolizes the control and direction that the shipbuilder's ancestors sought in the vast seas they sailed. The shape of the rudder is vital. It must be strong yet flexible, able to withstand the forces of wind and water. With his sharp eyes and steady hands, the shipbuilder begins selecting the perfect piece of wood. He chooses a sturdy oak plank. It's grain-tight and resilient, perfectly suited for the task. He measures it carefully, making sure that every cut will be precise, each angle true. His saw moves through the timber, the sound of the blade cutting cleanly through the wood, a sound he knows well. It is the first step in shaping the rudder, and it marks the beginning of a delicate and thoughtful process. Each cut, each movement of the chisel requires patience and skill. As he works, the shipbuilder's mind drifts back to his childhood, when he first learned the craft from his father. He remembers watching with awe as his father worked with the wood, shaping it into something functional yet beautiful, creating vessels that would carry them across seas and into distant lands. Today, as he shapes the rudder, he feels his father's presence beside him, guiding him with the same steady hand that had once guided his own. The rhythmic sound of the chisel tapping against the wood echoes in the workshop as the shipbuilder carefully carves the rudder into shape. Each stroke is measured, deliberate, ensuring that the piece is perfectly crafted. He is mindful of the many ships that will sail because of this one rudder, each one carrying with it the hopes and dreams of those who set sail on it. The shipbuilder's focus never wavers, his hands moving with practiced ease as he shapes the rudder into a beautiful and functional piece. The soft rustle of the wind outside and the distant calls of seabirds are the only sounds that accompany the shipbuilder's work. Outside, the village is beginning to stir, the soft murmur of neighbors exchanging greetings, blending with the sounds of the village coming to life. The blacksmith's hammer can be heard in the distance, a rhythmic pounding that complements the steady tap of the shipbuilder's chisel. The shipbuilder is fully immersed in the work, the wood taking shape beneath his hands. He can feel the years of tradition and craftsmanship flowing through him as he continues to carve. As the rudder begins to take form, the shipbuilder steps back for a moment to admire his work. The sun has climbed higher in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the workshop, and the piece of oak now resembles the rudder that will guide the ship across the sea. The wood feels solid beneath his touch, and he runs his hand over its smooth surface, feeling the grain and the texture of the wood, knowing that it is ready for the next stage of the process. The rudder is now fully shaped, and the shipbuilder moves to the next task, attaching it securely to the ship's hull. He carefully measures and marks the points where the rudder will be fixed, ensuring that every connection is strong and stable. The shipbuilder moves with the same precision and care that he has shown throughout the entire process. As the rudder is attached, he takes a moment to admire the craftsmanship, knowing that the ship is now one step closer to completion. The shipbuilder pauses for a moment, wiping the sweat from his brow before returning to the task. Outside, the village continues with its daily rhythms. The sound of children's laughter fills the air, their voices carrying over the breeze as they play near the shore. The shipbuilder's mind drifts for a moment, remembering his own childhood games along these very shores. But his focus quickly returns to the task at hand, the rudder now firmly attached to the ship. It is a symbol of the control and direction that the shipbuilder has sought in his work. He runs his hand over the rudder one last time, feeling the strength of the wood, knowing that it is ready to face the challenges of the open sea. The sun begins to dip lower in the sky, and the shipbuilder knows that the day's work is nearly done. The rudder is now complete. The ship has taken another step toward readiness. As the evening settles over the fjord, the shipbuilder cleans his tools slowly, each motion deliberate, each movement a final tribute to the day's labor. The stars begin to twinkle above, their pale light reflected in the still waters below. The shipbuilder steps outside for a moment, gazing up at the stars, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a day's work well done. The rudder, now a symbol of direction and control, stands firm on the ship, ready to guide it across the vast, unpredictable waters. The village is quiet now, the sounds of the day fading into the night. The shipbuilder, content with his work, prepares for rest, knowing that tomorrow will bring another day of creation, another step closer to completing the vessel that will carry the hopes and dreams of his people across the seas. With the rut As the sun rises over the still waters of the northern fjord, casting its warm golden rays over the village and the quiet workshop, the Viking shipbuilder awakens to a fresh day of work. The cool morning air, thick with the scent of pine resin and damp earth, invigorates him as he steps outside and takes in the serene beauty of the fjord. The workshop, nestled by the edge of the water, feels alive with the anticipation of the day ahead. The shipbuilder's hands, worn and calloused from years of dedication, move with confidence and purpose. Today, the task at hand is the rudder, the essential piece that will give the ship control over its journey, steering it safely through the unpredictable waters. The shipbuilder looks out over the fjord, contemplating the important role this piece will play. The rudder is not just a functional part of the ship. It symbolizes the control and direction that the shipbuilder's ancestors sought in the vast seas they sailed. The shape of the rudder is vital. It must be strong yet flexible, able to withstand the forces of wind and water. With his sharp eyes and steady hands, the shipbuilder begins selecting the perfect piece of wood. He chooses a sturdy oak plank, its grain tight and resilient, perfectly suited for the task. He measures it carefully, making sure that every cut will be precise, each angle true. His saw moves through the timber, the sound of the blade cutting cleanly through the wood, a sound he knows well. It is the first step in shaping the rudder, and it marks the beginning of a delicate and thoughtful process. Each cut, each movement of the chisel requires patience and skill. As he works, the shipbuilder's mind drifts back to his childhood when he first learned the craft from his father. He remembers watching with awe as his father worked with the wood, shaping it into something functional, yet beautiful, creating vessels that would carry them across seas and into distant lands. Today, as he shapes the rudder, he feels his father's presence beside him, guiding him with the same steady hand that had once guided his own. The rhythmic sound of the chisel tapping against the wood echoes in the workshop as the shipbuilder carefully carves the rudder into shape. Each stroke is measured, deliberate, ensuring that the piece is perfectly crafted. He is mindful of the many ships that will sail because of this one rudder, each one carrying with it the hopes and dreams of those who set sail on it. The shipbuilder's focus never wavers, his hands moving with practiced ease as he shapes the rudder into a beautiful and functional piece. The soft rustle of the wind outside and the distant calls of seabirds are the only sounds that accompany the shipbuilder's work. Outside, the village is beginning to stir, the soft murmur of neighbors exchanging greetings, blending with the sounds of the village coming to life. The blacksmith's hammer can be heard in the distance, a rhythmic pounding that complements the steady tap of the shipbuilder's chisel. The shipbuilder is fully immersed in the work, the wood taking shape beneath his hands. He can feel the years of tradition and craftsmanship flowing through him as he continues to carve. As the rudder begins to take form, the shipbuilder steps back for a moment to admire his work. The sun has climbed higher in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the workshop, and the piece of oak now resembles the rudder that will guide the ship across the sea. The wood feels solid beneath his touch, and he runs his hand over its smooth surface, feeling the grain and the texture of the wood, knowing that it is ready for the next stage of the process. The rudder is now fully shaped, and the shipbuilder moves to the next task, attaching it securely to the ship's hull. He carefully measures and marks the points where the rudder will be fixed, ensuring that every connection is strong and stable. The shipbuilder moves with the same precision and care that he has shown throughout the entire process. As the rudder is attached, he takes a moment to admire the craftsmanship, knowing that the ship is now one step closer to completion. The shipbuilder pauses for a moment, wiping the sweat from his brow before returning to the task. Outside, the village continues with its daily rhythms. The sound of children's laughter fills the air, their voices carrying over the breeze as they play near the shore. The shipbuilder's mind drifts for a moment, remembering his own childhood games along these very shores. But his focus quickly returns to the task at hand, the rudder now firmly attached to the ship. It is a symbol of the control and direction that the shipbuilder has sought in his work. He runs his hand over the rudder one last time, feeling the strength of the wood, knowing that it is ready to face the challenges of the open sea. The sun begins to dip lower in the sky, and the shipbuilder knows that the day's work is nearly done. The rudder is now complete. The ship has taken another step toward readiness. As the evening settles over the fjord, the shipbuilder cleans his tools slowly, each motion deliberate, each movement a final tribute to the day's labor. The stars begin to twinkle above, their pale light reflected in the still waters below. The shipbuilder steps outside for a moment, gazing up at the stars, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a day's work well done. The rudder, now a symbol of direction and control, stands firm on the ship, ready to guide it across the vast, unpredictable waters. The village is quiet now, the sounds of the day fading into the night. The shipbuilder, content with his work, prepares for rest, knowing that tomorrow will bring another day of creation, another step closer to completing the vessel that will carry the hopes and dreams of his people across the seas. With the rudder now in place, the ship has become a living, breathing thing, a creation of wood, tar, and skill, ready to set sail and carry the legacy of the Viking people into the unknown. As the night wraps its calm around the fjord, the shipbuilder takes one last look at his creation, then closes the workshop door, retreating inside for the night. The ship is ready, And so, too, is he for the next day's work and for the adventures that lie ahead. As the sun rises once again over the northern fjord, casting its warm rays upon the workshop and the half-constructed ship, the Viking shipbuilder begins his day. The crisp morning air, thick with the scent of pine resin and sea breeze, fills his lungs as he steps outside to take in the peaceful surroundings. The fjord, calm and still, reflects the sky like a mirror, while the village slowly comes to life. The familiar sounds of neighbors greeting each other and fishermen preparing their boats for the coming day. But inside the workshop, the shipbuilder's attention is focused entirely on the next step in his work, the ship's rigging. The rigging is a vital part of the ship, a complex network of ropes, pulleys, and spars that will harness the power of the wind to propel the vessel across the open sea. It is a task that requires not only technical skill, but also an understanding of the forces at play on the water and in the wind. Today, the shipbuilder is tasked with creating the ropes and assembling the rigging that will support the mast, allowing the sails to catch the wind and drive the ship forward. The shipbuilder's experienced hands move with practiced precision as he selects the finest fibers, the strongest ropes, and the most durable materials for the task. He carefully measures the lengths of rope needed, tying each knot with care, knowing that every detail must be perfect for the ship to function as it was intended. The ropes are then threaded through pulleys, and the shipbuilder makes sure that every knot is secure and every line is taut. As he works, his mind drifts to the many voyages that the rigging will help facilitate. He imagines the ship setting sail for distant lands, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of those who rely on it to take them across the seas. Each line, each knot, represents the strength and resilience of the ship, and by extension, the strength and resilience of those who build and sail it. The sun climbs higher in the sky as the shipbuilder continues to work. The workshop fills with the sound of the ropes being tightened, the creaking of pulleys being tested, and the rustle of sails being unfurled. The shipbuilder is completely absorbed in his work, the steady rhythm of his labor blending seamlessly with the natural symphony of the fjord, the calls of seabirds, the wind whispering through the trees, and the distant sounds of the village waking up to another day. As the shipbuilder works, his thoughts often drift back to the generations of shipbuilders who have come before him. He remembers his father, who first taught him the craft, and the many other craftsmen who have passed down their knowledge over the years. The shipbuilder knows that he is part of a long tradition, one that has spanned centuries, and that the rigging he is creating will continue that legacy. The ship's rigging is more than just a functional part of the ship. It is a symbol of the craftsmanship and knowledge passed down from generation to generation. As the shipbuilder ties the final knot in the rigging, he steps back to admire his work. The ropes are now firmly in place, the pulleys ready to be used, and the sails, once unfurled, will catch the wind and carry the ship forward. The shipbuilder's mind drifts to the sea again, imagining the ship cutting through the waves, its sails billowing in the wind, and the crew working together to steer the vessel toward unknown shores. The rigging, he knows, will be the heart of the ship's movement, allowing it to navigate the vast and unpredictable ocean. The shipbuilder runs his hands over the ropes one last time, feeling the texture of the fibers beneath his fingers. He knows that these ropes will soon be tested by the wind and the waves, and that their strength will be proven during the ship's maiden voyage. The shipbuilder feels a deep sense of pride in the work he has done. As the sun begins to dip lower in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the fjord, the shipbuilder cleans his tools slowly and deliberately, each motion a final act of reverence for the day's work. He steps outside for a moment, taking in the stillness of the fjord and the peaceful beauty of the village. The stars are beginning to appear in the sky, their pale light reflected in the calm waters below. The shipbuilder knows that the ship is one step closer to completion, and that tomorrow will bring more work, more challenges, and more progress. He looks at the ship, standing proud and tall in the workshop, its rigging now in place, and feels a deep sense of satisfaction. The ship is coming to life, and it will soon be ready to face the vast seas that lie beyond the fjord. The shipbuilder smiles to himself, knowing that he is part of something much larger than himself, something that has been passed down through generations. His work, like the work of those before him, is a part of the legacy of the Viking people. As the night settles in and the sounds of the village fade away, the shipbuilder returns to the warmth of his hearth, ready for rest. Tomorrow will bring more work, but for now, he can take comfort in the knowledge that the ship is one step closer to its purpose, ready to sail the open seas, ready to carry the dreams of those who will sail with it, and ready to honor the tradition of the Viking shipbuilders who have come before him. With a final glance at the ship, the shipbuilder closes his eyes and drifts into a peaceful sleep, knowing that the work he has done will continue the legacy of his ancestors and carry it forward into the future. The cold morning air, crisp and invigorating, greets the Viking shipbuilder as he emerges from his humble workshop, nestled by the edge of the calm fjord. Above, the sky stretches wide and pale, a canvas of early light spilling across the horizon, while the steady murmur of the water, lapping against the rocks below, sets a rhythm for the day ahead. The village is still sleepy, with only the quiet rustle of the wind through the towering pines and the soft sounds of distant fishermen preparing their boats for the day's work. But for the shipbuilder, today is another step forward, another day of shaping the vessel that will soon sail the open seas. The task before him today is one of the most crucial, shaping the hull. The hull is the foundation of the ship, its skeleton and its strength. It must be crafted with precision and care, as it will bear the full force of the water, the wind, and the weight of the cargo it carries. Each curve, each plank, and each seam must be perfect if the ship is to endure the challenges of the open ocean. Inside the workshop, the half-finished ship waits patiently, its frame already taking shape, the ribs of the vessel arching upward like the bones of a great creature, ready to be clothed in the wooden planks that will protect and carry it across the water. The shipbuilder surveys the work already completed, his eyes scanning the curvature of the ship's frame. The delicate yet strong ribs are in place, and now the real work begins. The first task is to measure and cut the planks that will form the hull. He selects the finest oak, carefully inspecting the grain for strength and resilience. The oak, harvested from the surrounding forest, has been seasoned for months, its wood dried and ready for the task at hand. Each plank must be precisely shaped to fit the frame, ensuring that the lines of the ship are smooth and even. The shipbuilder uses his long knife to carve the edges of the planks, shaving off small amounts at a time until the fit is perfect. The blade slides through the wood with ease, a sound that echoes in the quiet of the workshop. The rhythmic motion of shaping the planks, the hum of the knife as it cuts through the grain, is meditative, and the shipbuilder finds himself lost in the process, his mind focused solely on the task at hand. The quiet of the morning seems to stretch out forever, and yet, with each stroke of the knife, the ship begins to take on more of its final form. As the planks are shaped, they are carefully placed against the ribs of the ship, their edges fitting snugly together. The shipbuilder moves around the frame, adjusting and aligning each plank, checking the fit and ensuring that the lines are smooth and straight. The first layer of planks is placed, and the hull begins to take shape. The shipbuilder steps back to admire his work, his gaze sweeping over the wooden skeleton of the ship. It is beginning to resemble the vessel he has envisioned for so long. He knows that this is just the beginning. The hull will need several layers of planks to be added, each one fitted carefully and securely. The task ahead is arduous, but the shipbuilder is determined, knowing that the end result will be worth every effort. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, casting its golden light across the workshop, the shipbuilder continues his work. The scent of pine resin and fresh-cut wood fills the air, grounding him in the moment. Each stroke of the chisel, each tap of the mallet, and each fitting of the planks brings the ship closer to completion. The rhythm of his work is steady, the motions of his hands automatic as he goes about his task. The ship, once a mere idea, is slowly becoming a reality. The hull, with its smooth curves and sturdy planks, will soon be strong enough to withstand the force of the ocean. But as the day wears on, the shipbuilder finds himself lost in the quiet satisfaction of the work. There is no rush, no need for haste. The ship will be ready when it is ready. And for now, all that matters is the steady, methodical work of shaping the hull. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the fjord, the shipbuilder takes a moment to pause and reflect. He steps back from his work and looks at the ship, its hull taking shape beneath his hands. The planks, though still rough and unpolished, already speak of strength and resilience. This ship, he knows, will carry its passengers across vast and unknown waters, just as the ships of his ancestors have done for centuries. It will be a vessel of exploration, a symbol of the courage and skill of those who built it. The shipbuilder wipes the sweat from his brow, his muscles aching from the day's work, but there is a sense of satisfaction in his bones. He knows that tomorrow the work will continue, and the ship will be one step closer to completion. But for now, as the stars begin to twinkle above the fjord and the village settles into the quiet of night, a shipbuilder allows himself a moment of peace. The ship, standing tall in the workshop, is a reminder of the tradition and craftsmanship that runs through his veins, a legacy that will continue with every plank, every knot, and every sail. Tomorrow, he will return to his work, but for tonight, he allows himself to rest, knowing that the ship he is building will soon be ready to take its place on the open seas. And as the night embraces the land, he can already hear the soft murmur of the waves calling to him, inviting him to continue the work that has been passed down through generations. The ship is coming to life, and with each passing day, it becomes more and more a part of the shipbuilder's legacy. The early morning air carries with it a whisper of the sea as the Viking shipbuilder steps into the workshop, his senses awakening to the familiar scent of pine resin, freshly sawed wood, and the salty tang of the fjord. Outside, the calm waters stretch endlessly toward the horizon, kissed by the first light of dawn that paints the sky in shades of pale orange and soft lavender. Inside the workshop, the ship waits, its frame slowly taking shape with each passing day. Today marks a crucial moment in its construction, the binding of the beams. These beams, essential for the ship's strength and stability, will tie the ship's skeleton together and form the foundation of its ability to withstand the violent forces of the sea. As the shipbuilder sets to work, he surveys the frame, noting the way the ribs arch gracefully, supporting the hull that has already taken form. The framework of the ship, though strong, still feels incomplete. There is something vital missing. It is the beams which will unite the ribs, the planks, and all other elements of the ship into a solid, cohesive structure. The shipbuilder begins by selecting the finest beams, straight and strong, each one chosen for its grain and resilience. These beams will carry the weight of the ship, and the shipbuilder knows they must be perfect. He measures carefully, his hands steady and practiced, the soft scrape of his tools filling the quiet of the morning as he prepares each beam to fit seamlessly into the structure. Each beam must be placed with precision, for even the smallest misalignment could affect the ship's balance and performance. As he works, the shipbuilder reflects on the long tradition of shipbuilding that has been passed down through generations. These beams, though simple in appearance, are part of a legacy that stretches back centuries, built by the hands of his ancestors who sailed the same waters, charting new paths and discovering new lands. With each motion, he honors their work, their dedication to craft and exploration. The shipbuilder knows that this ship, like all those before it, will carry not just the physical weight of the crew and cargo, but the weight of history, of countless generations who have crossed the seas in vessels like this one. The beams are placed one by one, each fitting perfectly into place. The shipbuilder works with a steady rhythm, his hands moving with the ease of familiarity. The sound of the wood being bound to the ship's frame is rhythmic, a soft, satisfying noise that reverberates through the workshop. As he moves from beam to beam, the ship begins to take on a life of its own. The frame, once skeletal and empty, is now a solid structure, its beams firmly in place, the ship's foundation strong and unyielding. The shipbuilder steps back from his work to admire the progress. The beams, now securely fastened, form a network of strength that will carry the ship through rough seas and calm alike. There is a sense of completion in the air, but the shipbuilder knows there is still much to be done. The binding of the beams is a critical step, but it is only one part of the larger process of bringing the ship to life. Still, there is a sense of pride in his chest as he surveys the work. The ship has transformed from a mere idea into a tangible reality, and each day brings it closer to the moment when it will sail across the fjord and into the open ocean. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, the shipbuilder continues to bind the beams, his focus unwavering. The rhythmic motion of his work is hypnotic. Each strike of the mallet, each tightening of the ropes, adding another layer of security to the vessel. The task is painstaking, but it is also meditative. The shipbuilder is in his element, surrounded by the scent of the wood, the steady sound of his tools, and the quiet peace of the fjord outside. There is no rush, no urgency, just the steady, unbroken flow of work. In this quiet, he finds solace, for the task at hand is one that has been done for centuries, and each strike of his hammer is a link in a chain that extends far beyond his own lifetime. The beams are bound, the ship's structure solidified, but the shipbuilder knows that this is only the beginning. There will be more work to do, the planks to finish, the rudder to shape, the sails to raise. But for now, the ship stands firm, its beams in place, and the shipbuilder takes a moment to rest. The work has been grueling, but rewarding, and as the sun begins to set, casting a warm golden glow over the fjord, the shipbuilder stands at the door of his workshop, looking out at the ship, his pride swelling in his chest. This is what he has worked for. This is the culmination of his craft, and in the quiet evening, he allows himself to savor the moment. The village around him settles into its evening rhythms, the soft murmur of voices and the distant call of seabirds blending with the creaking of the ship's beams. In the distance, the ocean calls, and the shipbuilder knows that soon the ship will carry him across those vast waters, just as it will carry others. But for tonight, there is peace. In the workshop, and in the stillness of the fjord, the shipbuilder allows himself a moment of quiet reflection. His ship is no longer just wood and tools, it is a testament to his skill, his ancestors, and the enduring spirit of exploration that has defined his people for generations. The ship stands ready for the next phase of its creation, and the shipbuilder stands ready for the journey ahead. Together, they will face the open sea, but tonight they rest. The evening draws on, and with each passing minute, the ship takes one step closer to its final form. It is a moment of quiet satisfaction, but it is also a reminder of the hard work and dedication that lies ahead. As the stars twinkle above the fjord, the shipbuilder finally turns away from his work, ready for the sleep that will carry him through another day of craftsmanship tomorrow. The beams are bound, the ship stands firm, and soon it will sail carrying its maker, its crew, and the spirit of adventure into the unknown. The crisp air of the early morning carried the scent of damp earth and salt water as the Viking shipbuilder stepped into his workshop, ready to begin another day of painstaking craftsmanship. The sun had barely crested the horizon, casting long shadows over the fjord as the small village began to stir. The stillness of the water mirrored the calm within the shipbuilder's heart. There was something serene about these quiet mornings when the world was just waking up. Yet he had already been at work for hours, his hands moving with practiced precision. Today, he would focus on one of the most important components of the ship, the rudder. The rudder, though often overlooked, was a crucial part of any vessel. It would guide the ship across both calm waters and rough seas, ensuring that it could stay true to its course, even in the most unpredictable conditions. For a shipbuilder, shaping the rudder was a task of great responsibility. It would be the vessel's guiding hand, its directional force. The shipbuilder stood before the half-completed ship, admiring the work he had done so far. The sturdy ribs, the solid beams, the carefully bound frame. But now, he needed to give the ship the ability to move, to follow the course that would carry it across unknown waters. He began by selecting the wood for the rudder. The oak was dense and strong, perfect for a piece that would need to withstand the pressures of both wind and water. The grain was tight, the fibers running smoothly. From end to end ideal for a component that had to endure the stresses of both heavy winds and stormy waves. The shipbuilder's hands moved with skill, emotions of his craft nearly automatic. He measured the wood carefully, calculating the exact dimensions of the rudder. It needed to be long enough to provide ample control, yet not so large that it would be cumbersome in the water. He worked quickly, his hands steady as he sawed through the oak, each stroke of the blade slicing through the wood with a satisfying precision. The rudder began to take shape, its sleek, angular form emerging from the rough-hewn block of oak. As he carved the wood, the shipbuilder felt a sense of connection with the generations of shipbuilders who had come before him, each one shaping rudders for their ships in a manner that had been handed down through the ages. The shipbuilder worked in a rhythm, each movement fluid and natural, as if he were part of the very fabric of the ship itself. His tools, though worn from years of use, remained sharp, their edges gliding through the wood with ease. The rasp of the planes and the rhythmic tap of his mallet created a symphony of sound, each stroke adding another layer to the growing rudder. The shipbuilder paid close attention to the balance of the rudder, ensuring that its weight would be distributed evenly. It needed to be heavy enough to steer the ship effectively, but not so heavy that it would slow it down or create unnecessary drag. Each cut he made was purposeful, each adjustment made with care. As he worked, the shipbuilder thought about the long voyages that the ship would soon undertake, about the seas it would sail and the challenges it would face. The rudder would be the key to the ship's success, allowing it to change direction and navigate even the most unpredictable waters. The shipbuilder's thoughts drifted to the people who would one day sail this vessel, the brave men and women who would trust their lives to the ship, relying on its craftsmanship to keep them safe as they journeyed into the unknown. The rudder was more than just a piece of wood. It was a promise, a guarantee of safety and control. It was the shipbuilder's gift to those who would sail her. As the rudder began to take its final form, the shipbuilder turned his attention to the installation. He carefully measured the spot on the ship where the rudder would be placed, ensuring that it would be perfectly aligned with the hull. It needed to be securely fastened, able to withstand the pressure of the water and the force of the winds. The shipbuilder's hands worked quickly, but with great care, securing the rudder to the ship with iron bolts and wooden pegs. Each strike of his hammer was a declaration of purpose, each movement a step closer to completion. When the rudder was finally in place, the shipbuilder stepped back to admire his work. It was a thing of beauty, sleek and functional, ready to guide the ship through storm and calm alike. The ship was now fully equipped to take on the vast ocean. As the shipbuilder stood there, gazing at the rudder, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The ship was no longer just a skeleton of wood. It was a living, breathing vessel, ready to carry its passengers across the seas. He wiped his brow, feeling the weight of the day's work on his shoulders, but also the lightness of accomplishment. The ship had grown stronger with every piece, every stroke, and every decision he made. The rudder, in particular, was a symbol of his craft, a masterful combination of art and function, a piece of the ship that would carry its crew through whatever challenges the sea had in store. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the workshop, the shipbuilder allowed himself a moment of rest. He stepped outside, inhaling the fresh sea air, and looked out across the fjord. The water was calm now, but the shipbuilder knew that one day it would be tested by the harshest of storms. The rudder would guide it, just as the shipbuilder's hands had guided the ship's creation. Tomorrow, he would return to the workshop, and the ship would continue to take shape. But for tonight, there was peace. The ship was ready. The rudder was in place. The journey had begun. The first light of dawn had barely touched the peaks of the distant mountains when the Viking shipbuilder entered his humble workshop, a quiet yet purposeful calm settling around him. The wood smells of pine and oak filled the cool morning air. As he moved past the half-constructed ship resting in its cradle, waiting patiently for the day's labor to continue, he could hear the distant calls of seabirds and the rustling of the early morning breeze as it swept through the village, still tucked in the embrace of sleep. Today, he would shape the mast, the towering center of the ship, which would serve as the lifeblood of the vessel when the wind filled its sails. The mast was not just a practical component. It was the ship's backbone, the very structure that would give it strength and stability as it sailed across the treacherous northern seas. The shipbuilder stood in front of a towering pine, a tree that had grown strong in the harsh environment of the north. He had chosen it specifically for its tall, straight trunk, perfect for the mast that would carry the ship's sails. His hands ran over the rough bark, feeling the deep grooves that spoke of years of growth, each line a testament to the strength the tree had gathered through decades of harsh northern winds and winters. The choice of wood for the mast was crucial. It had to be strong enough to support the sails, yet flexible enough to endure the forces of the sea. The shipbuilder knew that this would be one of the most important steps in the ship's construction, for without the mast, the ship would never sail. With careful precision, he began to fell the tree, the sound of his axe ringing through the forest, breaking the early morning silence. He worked steadily, each swing of his axe calculated and deliberate, bringing the tree down slowly but surely. When the tree finally fell with a mighty crash, the shipbuilder stood in awe for a moment, admiring its size and strength. The work was far from over, however. The trunk now lay in front of him, and it was time to shape the mast. He carefully stripped the branches, his movements practiced and sure as he peeled the bark from the wood, revealing the pale surface beneath. Each stroke of the axe seemed to bring the mast closer to its intended form. The tree's rough exterior gave way to the smooth, sleek surface of the mast, and the shipbuilder worked tirelessly, ensuring that every inch was shaped to perfection. His hands were skilled in the craft, having worked with wood for many years. Yet there was always a certain reverence in the way he shaped each piece. Wood had a way of speaking to him, of guiding his hands, and he listened carefully, ensuring that the wood's natural grain and strength were respected throughout the process. The mast slowly began to take shape, rising tall and straight, its tapered form standing as a symbol of the ship's strength and potential. It would bear the weight of the sails, supporting the ship's journey across the seas. The shipbuilder knew that once the mast was in place, the ship would truly begin to take life. His axe flashed in the dim light as he worked, his hands moving with a quiet rhythm, carving and smoothing the wood. He had worked with masts before, but every time he crafted one, it felt like the first. There was always a sense of anticipation, of knowing that this piece would determine the ship's future. As the sun began to rise higher in the sky, casting a golden glow over the fjord, the mast was nearing completion. The shipbuilder stepped back, admiring his work. It was a thing of beauty, tall and proud, ready to serve its purpose. With a steady hand, he smoothed out the final details, ensuring that the mast would stand true once it was fitted into place. It was time to move on to the next step. The mast would need to be fitted into the ship, and it had to be done with the utmost care. The shipbuilder moved to the ship, the wooden frame now fully formed, but still lacking its center. The hole for the mast had already been carefully carved, and now it was time to place the towering piece of wood into position. The shipbuilder took a deep breath, steadying himself, and heaved the mast into the hole, feeling its weight and strength as he worked it into place. It was a delicate operation, ensuring that the mast was perfectly centered and aligned with the rest of the ship. The shipbuilder worked methodically, adjusting the mast as necessary, his hands steady as he fastened it securely into position. The ship was beginning to take on a new shape now, its towering mast standing proud, ready to bear the sails that would catch the wind and propel it across the seas. As the shipbuilder stepped back to admire the ship, he could see it taking shape in a way that was almost alive. The mast was no longer just a piece of wood. It was the heart of the ship, the part that would carry the wind and the sun across. The water. The shipbuilder smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. The mast was in place, and with it, the ship was one step closer to becoming a vessel that would sail the waters. There was still much to do: ropes to tie, sails to hang, and the rigging to complete, but for now, the ship was no longer a skeleton of wood. It had found its backbone, and it was ready to begin its journey. As the shipbuilder stood there, watching the mast sway gently in the breeze, he felt a sense of fulfillment that only comes from seeing something take shape from nothing. The ship was becoming real, and the journey, both for the shipbuilder and for the ship itself, was just beginning. With a final glance at the mast, he turned and began preparing for the next step in the process. There was no time to waste. The sea was waiting, and the shipbuilder's work was far from over. But now he allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction, knowing that the ship was one step closer to the great adventure that awaited it. The morning broke with a soft glow over the tranquil fjord, the sun climbing slowly as the Viking shipbuilder entered his workshop, his breath steady and measured as he prepared for the day's work. The ship, now with its towering mast standing proudly at its heart, was nearly ready for its final touches before the great task of setting sail. Today, the shipbuilder's attention turned to the ship's rigging, a task that would demand all of his skill and patience. The rigging, with its complex network of ropes, locks, and pulleys, was the ship's lifeblood. It would guide the sails and the mast, controlling the flow of wind to ensure the ship moved as one with the sea. As he approached the half-finished ship, its wooden frame now sturdy and defined, the shipbuilder could almost feel the energy building, as though the vessel was waiting for this crucial element to bring it to life. He took a deep breath, inhaling the familiar scent of pine resin, the faintest hint of salt air drifting in from the fjord. The first step was to gather the necessary materials. The shipbuilder knew well that the rigging needed to be both strong and flexible. He needed rope that was thick enough to withstand the fierce winds, but light enough to allow for ease of movement. After inspecting his stock of hemp and linen ropes, he began to cut and twist the fibers, preparing them for the delicate and precise task ahead. The sound of his shears cutting through the fibers was rhythmic, a soft snip that resonated in the quiet morning. Each strand was carefully woven together, creating thick ropes strong enough to support the weight of the sails. As he worked, his mind drifted to the countless other ships he had worked on throughout his life, each one a living testament to the skill and tradition passed down from generation to generation. He could still hear the stories his father had told him as a boy of the great ships that sailed the open seas, their sails billowing with the wind, carrying the hopes and dreams of those who rode them. The rigging was more than just a technical necessity. It was a link to the past, a connection to those who had come before. The shipbuilder's hands moved with practiced ease as he worked the ropes, weaving them through the wooden blocks that would act as pulleys. The blocks themselves were expertly carved, their surfaces smooth and polished, their edges sharp enough to hold the ropes firmly in place. With each loop and knot, the ship began to take on its final form. As the rigging came together, the shipbuilder marveled at the complexity of it all. Each line had a purpose. Each knot had a function. The rigging was not just an afterthought. It was the system that would allow the ship to sail, to harness the power of the wind, and to navigate the unpredictable waters ahead. He worked tirelessly, moving from one side of the ship to the other, ensuring that every rope was secure and every pulley aligned with precision. The wind began to pick up, rustling the trees outside and making the ship's new rigging sway gently, as if it were already testing the elements. The shipbuilder paused, for a moment, stepping back to survey his work. The rigging was complete. The ropes hung neatly in place, the blocks were secure, and the sails, though not yet attached, could already be imagined in their place, ready to catch the wind. It was a moment of quiet satisfaction, knowing that the ship was now capable of taking to the open water. Yet the shipbuilder knew there was still more to do. The rigging needed to be tested before the ship could be launched. He pulled on a few of the ropes, feeling the resistance as they tightened, adjusting them ever so slightly to ensure they would function as needed. The ropes responded with a satisfying snap, a sign that they had been tied correctly, and were now ready for the real test. With a final check of each line, the shipbuilder nodded to himself. The rigging was complete, and the ship was ready to sail. As he stood there, watching the sunlight play across the water, the ship seemed to come alive. The rigging, now taut and firm, would carry the sails into the wind, and the mast would bend and sway, responding to the movement of the sea. The shipbuilder smiled, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. He knew that the ship would sail with grace, and that the rigging, with all of its intricacy and care, would carry the vessel across the seas. It was a quiet moment of peace before the storm, for the shipbuilder knew that the real adventure was yet to come. But for now, the ship stood ready, its rigging complete, its sails ready to catch the wind, and the shipbuilder could only imagine the journeys it would undertake. Would it carry explorers across the seas to unknown lands? Would it bring families home from distant shores? Only time would tell, but the shipbuilder knew one thing for sure. The ship, now standing with its mast and rigging, was as ready as it could be for whatever the seas might bring. The shipbuilder stood for a long moment, feeling the weight of the years of work, of the tradition that had been passed down to him, and of the countless ships that had sailed before. He was part of something much larger than himself, a craftsman in the service of a great tradition. As he turned and began to clean his tools, his heart swelled with pride, knowing that he had done his part in creating something that would endure. The rigging was done, the mast was in place, and the ship was one step closer to its maiden voyage. The sea was waiting, and the shipbuilder was ready to see it sail. As dawn's first light spread its soft glow over the fjord, the shipbuilder stepped into his workshop, the crisp morning air filling his lungs with the familiar scent of pine resin, damp wood, and salt. The half-constructed Viking ship stood. Before him, a massive creation of wood and tar, its frame now complete with the main structure, rigging, and mast, but still missing a crucial piece, the figurehead. This ornamental carving would be the ship's soul, a powerful symbol to guide it through the stormy seas, protecting it from evil spirits, and reflecting the pride and culture of its creators. The figurehead, often a depiction of gods, beasts, or mythical creatures, was not merely an aesthetic feature, but a vital part of the ship's identity. For the Viking people, the figurehead was as important as the ship itself, embodying their strength, courage, and connection to the divine. As the shipbuilder stood before the ship, he could almost sense the presence of these ancient gods looking down upon him, urging him to create something worthy of their blessing. His eyes scanned the ship, taking in its sleek lines and majestic form. Now it was time for the final touch. With steady hands, he selected a large piece of oak, its grain thick and sturdy, the wood darkened by time and experience. This would be the base for the figurehead, and he knew it would need to be strong enough to withstand the harsh northern winds and the rough seas that awaited the ship. As he prepared to carve, his mind drifted back to the stories his father had told him, of the great ships that had sailed before, each one with its own unique figurehead. He thought of the dragons and serpents that adorned the bows of Viking, ships, symbols of strength and fierceness that inspired fear in their enemies. There was something sacred in this process, something that connected him to the generations of shipbuilders who had come before him, each one leaving behind a legacy in the wood and the carvings of these mighty vessels. He began the work, his tools in hand, a chisel, a mallet, and a knife, each one worn smooth by years of use. With careful strokes, he began to shape the wood, his mind focused on the task at hand. The figurehead would take the form of a majestic eagle, its wings spread, wide, ready to take flight. The eagle was a symbol of freedom, power, and victory, qualities that the shipbuilder hoped would imbue the vessel with strength. As the wood began to take shape, he saw the eagle coming to life in the grain, its wings arching upward, its talons extended as if ready to strike. Each cut was deliberate, each stroke of the chisel a reflection of his skill and respect for the craft. The shipbuilder worked slowly, ensuring that every detail was perfect. He smoothed the edges of the wings, carefully carved the beak and eyes, and added intricate designs along the feathers to give the figurehead texture and life. It was a delicate balance between strength and beauty. Too much force in the carving could ruin the wood, but too little could leave the figurehead lifeless and uninspiring. As the hours passed, the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a warm, golden light into the workshop. The shipbuilder's hands were steady, his movements precise, and he could feel the energy of the ship beginning to hum with life as the eagle took form. The figurehead was no longer just a piece of wood. It was a protector, a guardian, and a symbol of the ship's power. With the rough shape now complete, the shipbuilder stepped back to examine his work. The eagle looked down at him from the prow of the ship, its eyes fierce and determined, its wings powerful and poised for flight. It was a magnificent sight, and for a moment the shipbuilder stood still, taking in the beauty of the figurehead he had created. But the work was not finished. He knew the figurehead would need more than just shaping. It needed to be polished, refined, and protected. He took a small knife and began to carve finer details, adding texture to the feathers, deepening the shadows around the eyes, and smoothing the edges to give the eagle a sense of movement. He worked tirelessly, each small touch adding to the figurehead's lifelike quality. He added a final layer of protection, rubbing the wood with a mixture of tar and resin, ensuring that the Eagle would be preserved against the harsh elements it would face once the ship set sail. The shipbuilder took a step back and admired the finished figurehead, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. It was as if the Eagle itself had come to life, ready to lead the ship into battle and to the ends of the earth. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that this work, this final touch, would ensure the ship's success on its journey. The shipbuilder knew that the ship, now complete with its majestic figurehead, was more than just a vessel of wood and tar. It was a living, breathing thing, ready to carry those who sailed it across the seas, into unknown lands, and through every storm. The ship was no longer just a ship. It was a warrior, an adventurer, and a protector. As the shipbuilder cleaned his tools and stepped outside into the crisp evening air, the ship stood tall and proud, its figurehead gleaming in the fading light of the day. The Eagle seemed to gaze out over the fjord, watching the waters with fierce determination, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The shipbuilder knew that this ship would sail with strength and purpose, guided by the Eagle's watchful eyes and protected by the spirits of the ancient gods. With a final glance at the ship, the shipbuilder smiled. The task was complete. The figurehead was finished, and the ship, now ready for its maiden voyage, was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of everything the Viking people stood for: courage, strength, and a fierce determination to conquer whatever lay ahead. The shipbuilder had done his part, and now the ship was ready to take to the seas. It would carry the hopes and dreams of the crew, just as it carried the spirit of the gods who watched over them. The figurehead, with its mighty eagle wings spread wide, would be the guiding force, leading the ship into the unknown with power and grace. As the evening settled in, the shipbuilder knew that the journey was just beginning. The ship, now complete, was ready to embark on the adventures that awaited it, and the shipbuilder, though exhausted, felt a sense of fulfillment that only comes from creating something truly magnificent. It was a quiet night, and as he left the workshop, he looked up at the stars, feeling the weight of history upon him. This ship would sail on, carrying the legacy of the past into the future, guided by the figurehead he had created with his own hands. It would be remembered for generations, just as the shipbuilder's craft would live on in the stories of those who sailed the seas. As the winds whispered through the northern fjord, the shipbuilder's hands moved with unwavering dedication. The workbench before him scattered with the tools of his trade. His calloused hands, now familiar with the rhythm of carving, sanding, and shaping, worked tirelessly. The scent of pine resin mingled with the tang of salt water as he adjusted the wooden planks for the ship's hull. Each piece fit together with precision, not just out of necessity, but with a reverence for the craft. Every detail, every curve, every seam reflected years of tradition, passed down from countless generations of artisans who had long before walked the same paths, felt the same earth beneath their boots, and breathed the same salty air. His thoughts, though focused on the task at hand, often drifted back to the stories his father had told him as a boy, tales of mighty ships that had sailed the vast oceans, stories of fierce warriors returning home, their ships cutting through waves like lightning in the dark. The shipbuilder paused for a moment, letting the weight of his lineage sink in. He could feel the pulse of his ancestors in the steady hum of the tools as they connected the timber to form a structure that would one day carry men, stories, and hopes across the sea. The world outside was still and quiet, save for the rhythmic sound of hammer on wood, and he found himself lost in the motions, measuring, cutting, shaping. His work was no longer just physical labor. It had become something more, something spiritual. Each movement of his hand was a prayer, a promise to the sea, the wind, and the distant lands beyond the horizon dot. As he worked, the sky outside shifted. the soft golden glow of sunset beginning to paint the fjord with a fiery hue. It was in these quiet moments, just as the day faded and the stars began to appear one by one, that he felt most connected to his craft. It was not merely about building a ship. It was about crafting a legacy. Every line, every curve of the ship told a story, not only of the men who would sail her, but of the land she had been built upon, the timber that had been gathered from the surrounding forests, the nails that had been hammered in with hands, that bore the marks of hard work. This ship was a living thing, forged in the heart of a craftsman who had dedicated his life to the mastery of his trade. As the sun climbs higher above the northern fjord, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink, the Viking shipbuilder begins his work in the quiet sanctuary of his workshop. The cold, crisp morning air fills the space with the invigorating scent of pine resin, damp earth, and salt from the nearby sea. His hands, worn and calloused from years of craftsmanship, move with practiced precision as he shapes the delicate curves of the ship's stern. Each movement is a slow and deliberate dance, a process that requires patience, focus, and an unyielding respect for the traditions passed down through countless generations. Outside, the village stirs with the sounds of life fishermen preparing. Their boats, neighbors exchanging quiet greetings, and children playing along the shore, their laughter carrying on the wind. The rhythmic sound of hammers and chisels fills the air as the shipbuilder continues his work, each tap and strike of the tool contributing to the growing masterpiece of wood and tar. The workshop is a world of its own, insulated from the passage of time by the steady rhythm of creation that fills the space. As the day progresses, the shipbuilder steps back to admire the shape taking form before him. The stern, now complete, stands as a testament to the dedication and skill embedded in every piece of the ship. He moves on to the next phase of his work, carefully inspecting the hull and making adjustments where necessary, ensuring that every curve and angle will ensure the vessel's strength and endurance against the fierce northern seas. The sun begins to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the workshop. The shipbuilder takes a moment to pause, inhaling deeply the familiar, comforting smells of wood and resin. His thoughts drift to the many voyages that the ship will one day make sailing across unknown waters, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of the people who built it. As daylight fades into evening, the shipbuilder begins the slow, deliberate task of cleaning his tools, each motion a quiet act of respect for the day's labor. Outside, the village falls into a peaceful rhythm as the first stars begin to twinkle. Above the fjord, their soft glow reflecting in the calm waters below. The shipbuilder, satisfied with the day's progress, steps back to gaze at the work before him. The ship is far from complete, but already its shape is beginning to emerge as something that will carry the spirit of the village with it across the seas. The quiet sound of the wind rustling through the trees and the soft lapping of the water against the shore serve as a lullaby, a reminder of the timeless connection between the people and the sea. As the shipbuilder locks the door to his workshop and prepares to retire for the night, he carries with him the knowledge that each day brings him closer to finishing the vessel that will carry the legacy of his people forward. He knows that tomorrow he will rise again with the first light of dawn, ready to continue the quiet craft of his work, shaping wood and history with each stroke of his hand. As the first rays of dawn spill over the quiet northern fjord, the Viking shipbuilder stirs in the calm light of early morning. The distant cries of seabirds echo through the air as the wind gently rustles through the towering pines surrounding the workshop. The crisp morning air is filled with the familiar, earthy scents of pine resin, damp earth, and the salty tang of the sea. The village begins to stir to life, the rhythmic sounds of hammers and footsteps filling the air as the inhabitants prepare for the day ahead. The shipbuilder stands in his modest workshop, the wooden beams of the half-finished ship towering around him, creating a sense of reverence as he begins his work for the day. Today, his hands will carve the ship's divine symbols, intricate designs meant not just to decorate, but to protect, bless, and guide the vessel and those who sail within it. He knows that these carvings, so carefully etched into the wood, will carry meaning that transcends the craftsmanship itself. They are an integral part of the ship's spirit, symbols of divine favor that will guide the vessel across turbulent seas, through storms, and toward distant lands. The shipbuilder reaches for his tools, a sharp chisel, a mallet, and a steady hand. As his tool bites into the wood, the ship begins to take on a life of its own. The carvings emerge slowly: spirits, animals, gods, each figure carefully chosen. For its meaning, each stroke imbued with the shipbuilder's respect for the traditions and beliefs passed down through generations. These aren't mere designs, but stories, prayers, and blessings, telling of the fierce warriors who once sailed these waters, of the gods who protected them, and of the journey that lay ahead for those who would embark upon this ship. The shipbuilder's mind drifts as his hands work. He thinks of the sea, the waves that will carry the ship across vast, unknown waters. He thinks of the men and women who will step aboard, their hopes and dreams in tow, seeking new lands or returning to the familiar shores. The ship is more than just a vessel. It is a symbol of freedom, adventure, and legacy. The divine carvings on its surface are meant to ensure the journey is safe, that the gods smile upon the ship's crew, guiding them to victory and safe passage. Every detail matters. No carving is done hastily. No design is too small to be treated with respect. The shipbuilder's task is sacred. Each cut he makes in the wood connects him to the ancient shipbuilders who preceded him, their spirits guiding his work. As the hours pass, the shipbuilder continues to carve, lost in the rhythmic motion of his work, surrounded by the soft sounds of the village awakening around him. The blacksmith's hammer rings out as he molds iron. The laughter of children echoes from the shores, and the soft murmur of neighbors fills the air. The village is alive with energy, but for the shipbuilder, it is the quiet solitude of his workshop and the hum of his own work that consumes him. The air smells of fresh timber, of pine resin, and of the saltwater breeze that comes from the fjord, reminding him that this ship will soon be set upon the water where it belongs. It will sail toward the horizon, into the unknown, with the blessing of the gods carved into every surface. The carving process is slow, deliberate. His chisel works its way into the wood, the mallet tapping each strike with precision. The symbols take shape, each one a piece of history, culture, and religion. Among the carvings are fierce animal shapes: bears, wolves, eagles, creatures of power and strength, meant to protect the ship from the dangers of the world. Alongside them, images of gods and goddesses, their forms representing fertility, victory, and protection, all carved into the hull as a shield for those aboard. There are symbols of the sea, of waves, of the wind, guiding the ship through storm and stillness alike. There are also intricate patterns that weave through the ship's wood, creating a story of its own. These carvings are meant to bring the ship's spirit to life, infusing it with the strength and courage of its creators and their ancestors. The shipbuilder pauses for a moment, stepping back to look at his work. He can see the progress, the ship now filled with divine symbols that will carry it through countless journeys. He takes a deep breath, the sharp smell of pine resin filling his lungs, and feels a deep sense of accomplishment. The ship is becoming something more than just wood and nails. It is becoming a living, breathing entity, imbued with the spirits of its creators. He knows that this ship, like those before it, will carry its passengers to new lands, to adventures, to battles, and to homecomings. It will carry the hopes of those who will sail in it, just as it carries the spirits of those who crafted it. As the day moves on, the shipbuilder continues to work. The sun climbs higher in the sky, casting its golden light across the fjord, and the ship's carvings seem to glow in the light, each detail coming to life under the shipbuilder's skilled hands. The village is alive with activity, but in the quiet of his workshop, surrounded by the wood, the tools, and the carvings, the shipbuilder is lost in a world of his own making. The world outside seems distant, but here, in his workshop, he is connected to something much larger than himself. He is connected to the past, to the gods, and to the future that this ship will sail toward. By the end of the day, the carvings are complete. The ship is now adorned with symbols of protection, power, and guidance. It is ready for the next step in its creation. The shipbuilder cleans his tools, his work for the day done, and steps back to admire his handiwork. As the stars begin to twinkle in the sky above the fjord, he feels a deep sense of satisfaction. The ship will soon be ready to sail. It's divine. Carvings guiding it across the vast oceans, carrying its passengers with strength and purpose. As the shipbuilder leaves his workshop for the night, he knows that tomorrow will bring another day of work, another step in the creation of the vessel that will carry his legacy and the legacy of his ancestors across the waters. But tonight, he allows himself to rest, knowing that his work has been done with skill, reverence, and care. And tomorrow, he will return to continue the journey of crafting a ship that will one day set sail into the unknown, with the blessings of the gods carved into its wood, guiding it forward. The soft light of dawn creeps over the horizon, casting its golden glow upon the calm waters of the fjord as the Viking shipbuilder rises from his bed, stretching his tired limbs and gazing out at the work he has poured his heart and soul into. The sky, painted with hues of pink and orange, reflects in the still waters, a mirror image of the world above, as though nature itself is holding its breath, waiting for the ship to be completed. Today is a momentous day, for today, the shipbuilder is preparing to add the final touches to the vessel, the very last steps that will turn his creation from a simple wooden frame into a living, breathing entity ready to take to the seas. The ship, though already impressive in its stature, is not yet fully ready for its maiden voyage. The craftsmanship of the hull, the intricacy of the divine carvings, and the rigging that holds the ship together have all been completed. But there are still small details that must be attended to, details that will make all the difference in ensuring the ship sails smoothly, safely, and swiftly across the waves. The shipbuilder walks slowly to the edge of the fjord, taking in the sight of the ship resting on the shore, its polished wood gleaming in the morning light, its sails fluttering gently in the breeze. He feels a deep sense of pride and awe. The vessel has been his labor of love, crafted with his own hands, using tools passed down through generations of shipbuilders. He knows that this ship will be remembered long after he is gone, a testament to his skill, dedication, and respect for the sea. But even as the ship gleams under the morning sun, he knows that it still requires a few finishing touches, tasks that might seem small, but which are essential for assuring the vessel's readiness for its journey. The shipbuilder begins by inspecting the rigging, running his hands over the ropes and knots, testing the tension in the lines to ensure they are secure. He checks the sails, making sure they are properly aligned and free from any damage that might hinder their ability to catch the wind. The ship must be able to glide smoothly through the water, its sails billowing in the breeze, its rigging taut and strong. Every detail counts, and there can be no room for error. The shipbuilder's experienced eyes scan every inch of the vessel, noting where adjustments need to be made. He pulls out his tools, tightening knots here, loosening a line there, and securing the sails to their masts. With each adjustment, the ship feels more alive, more ready for the journey ahead. As he works, the shipbuilder's mind drifts back to the many voyages these ships have made before him. He thinks of the sailors who will one day board this very vessel, embarking on their own adventures across the vast, unpredictable seas. He knows that they will depend on the ship's strength, its balance, and its ability to weather any storm. Every knot tied, every sail adjusted, is a promise to those sailors, one that assures them their safety, their success, and their journey to distant lands. The shipbuilder moves on to the next step, the finishing touches on the rudder. This vital part of the ship's design is what will allow the vessel to change course, to navigate through turbulent waters and calm seas alike. He inspects the rudder carefully, making sure it is properly aligned with the ship's hull. He tightens the bolts that hold it in place and ensures that it moves freely, ready to be used when the time comes. The shipbuilder knows that the rudder, though a simple piece of equipment, is one of the most important parts of the ship. Without it, the ship would be at the mercy of the currents, unable to steer itself toward its destination. With the rudder adjusted and ready, the shipbuilder turns his attention to the anchor, another crucial element of the ship's design. He checks the chain, making sure it is secure and able to hold the ship in place when it needs to stop. He tests the anchor's weight and its ability to hold fast in the face of rough seas. It is a task that may seem small compared to the grand rigging or the elaborate carvings that decorate the ship, but the anchor is just as important as the sails. Without it, the ship could be lost to the tides, drifting aimlessly in the vast ocean. Finally, the shipbuilder moves to the bow, where he gives the ship's figurehead one last look. The figurehead, a proud lion carved from oak, stands at the front of the ship, its fierce gaze fixed forward, symbolizing strength and courage. The shipbuilder runs his hand over the intricate carvings, making sure they are secure and that the figurehead is firmly in place. It is more than just a decoration. It is a symbol of the ship's spirit, the soul of the vessel that will carry it through the unknown. As he stands before the figurehead, the shipbuilder feels a surge of emotion. He has spent countless days and nights working on this ship, and now at last it is nearly complete. The final touches have been added, and the ship is ready to face the challenges that lie ahead. The shipbuilder steps back, taking one last look at the vessel. He feels a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. The ship is no longer just wood and rope. It is a living, breathing entity, ready to embark on its journey across the seas. The shipbuilder knows that it will sail into the unknown, that it will face storms and calm waters, and that it will carry its passengers safely to their destinations. But he also knows that it will carry a piece of him with it, his skill, his dedication, and his love for the craft. As the shipbuilder steps away from the ship, the first rays of the sun begin to warm the earth. The ship is ready for its maiden voyage, and the shipbuilder knows that it will carry its crew into the unknown, with the promise of adventure, discovery, and perhaps even a bit of glory. He watches as the ship is prepared to be launched, its hull sliding into the water, its sails unfurling in the breeze. The shipbuilder knows that, although this may be the end of his work on the vessel, it is only the beginning of its journey. He watches as the ship sets sail, its figurehead gleaming in the sunlight, and feels a deep sense of satisfaction. His work is done, and the ship is ready to carry its passengers into the unknown. The sea awaits, and the shipbuilder has done his part to ensure that it will sail with strength, grace, and the blessings of the gods. With one last glance at the ship as it moves away from the shore, the shipbuilder knows that his legacy will live on in every wave the ship conquers, in every port it reaches, and in every journey it undertakes. The ship is now a part of history, and its story will be told for generations to come. As the first rays of the sun begin to kiss the surface of the fjord, A soft hush falls over the village. The air, cool and crisp, carries the scent of salt from the sea, mingled with the earthy fragrance of the surrounding pines. The shipbuilder stands at the edge of the shore, his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the final preparations are made for the ship's maiden voyage. His heart swells with a sense of quiet pride, and yet there is a subtle tension in his chest. He knows that this is no ordinary day. Today marks the culmination of countless days, weeks, and months of labor, and today his ship will set sail for the first time. A steady wind whispers through the trees, carrying the promise of adventure and new horizons. The crew, a group of seasoned sailors and brave hearts, stand ready by the ship, their faces a mixture of excitement and anticipation. They are about to embark on a journey that will take them beyond the familiar waters of the fjord and into the vast unknown. The shipbuilder takes a moment to glance at the vessel one last time. Its sleek hull, smooth and polished, catches the early light reflecting the shimmering waters of the fjord. The ship's figurehead, a mighty lion carved with intricate detail, gleams with strength and defiance, its eyes fixed on the horizon. The sails, billowing in the wind, promise swift travel across the open sea. Every inch of the ship, from the carved wooden ribs to the meticulously tied knots in the rigging, speaks of the care and dedication with which it was built. It is a masterpiece of craftsmanship, a vessel that holds within it not just the wood, resin, and tar, but the spirit of the shipbuilder himself. As the crew begins to board, the shipbuilder's thoughts drift to the many voyages that have taken place over the centuries, to the countless ships that have left this very shore, heading into uncharted waters. His mind paints images of thee, brave souls who set sail, their hearts full of hope and courage, knowing that they were embarking on something far greater than themselves. He knows that this ship, too, will become a part of that legacy, a part of the ongoing story of exploration and discovery. A sharp command from the captain breaks his reverie, and the shipbuilder watches as the crew begins to ready the ship for departure. The sails are unfurled fully, and the ropes are tightened with practiced hands. The anchor is lifted, and the ship begins to move gently away from the shore, its sleek frame cutting through the water with surprising ease. The shipbuilder feels his heart race with a mix of emotions, pride, excitement, and a touch of anxiety. There is something profoundly moving about watching the ship, a creation born of his own hands, finally take to the sea. As the ship begins to gain speed, the shipbuilder's eyes follow it, watching as it moves away from the shore and toward the open waters. The crew members are busy at work, their movements coordinated and smooth as they man the rigging and steer the ship. The wind catches the sails, filling them with power, and the ship moves swiftly and confidently, as though it were born for this very purpose. The shipbuilder feels a deep sense of satisfaction, but also a sense of emptiness. His work, his labor, is done, and now it is time for the ship to carry its passengers on their journey. He stands still, watching the vessel as it begins to disappear into the distance, a proud figure against the vastness of the sea. The villagers, who have gathered along the shore to witness the departure, begin to cheer, their voices echoing across the water. The shipbuilder's chest tightens as he hears the roar of approval, but he does not join in the celebration. His heart is too full, too heavy with the weight of the moment. The ship is no longer his. It is now part of the world, part of the vast expanse of the seas that stretch beyond the horizon. The captain, standing at the helm, waves back toward the shore, his silhouette a steady figure against the backdrop of the sun. The crew, too, look back for a moment before turning their attention to the waters ahead. The shipbuilder watches them all as the ship moves further away, its sails billowing in the wind. He knows that this is the moment he has been waiting for. His creation, his masterpiece, is now a part of something much bigger. It is a vessel that will carry stories, dreams, and memories across the seas, and its legacy will live on in the hearts of those who sail upon it. As the ship becomes a small silhouette on the horizon, the shipbuilder feels a deep sense of completion. He has done his part, and now it is time for the ship to make its mark on the world. The village begins to disperse, and the shipbuilder turns to walk back toward his workshop. But even as he walks, he cannot shake the feeling that something momentous has just happened. The ship may be gone, but it will always be with him. The shipbuilder's thoughts drift to the many years that have passed since he first began this journey. He thinks of the long hours spent shaping the wood, the careful adjustments made to every detail, and the patience it took to ensure that every element was perfect. He reflects on the legacy of the shipbuilding tradition, one that has been passed down through generations, and one that he has now become a part of. It is a legacy of craftsmanship, of dedication to a craft that has shaped the lives of countless sailors and explorers. As the shipbuilder walks through the village, he feels a quiet sense of pride. He has created something that will endure long after he is gone. And though the ship may be sailing far from his reach, its journey has only just begun. He watches as the sun rises higher in the sky, its light spilling over the land, and for the first time in a long while, he feels at peace. The ship has set sail, and he has fulfilled his purpose. His legacy, like the ship itself, will continue to sail through the ages. The sky darkened unexpectedly, as if the heavens themselves had conspired to challenge the ship's maiden journey. Clouds gathered ominously on the horizon, their swirling shapes resembling the fury of a storm awakened from a deep slumber. The wind, once a friendly breeze urging the ship forward, now howled with a ferocity that rattled the rigging. The sailors, who had been basking in the excitement of the voyage, suddenly found themselves grappling with the reality of nature's untamed power. The shipbuilder, standing on the rocky shore with his eyes fixed on the distant vessel, could feel the shift in the air. He had known this moment might come, had known that the sea, in all its beauty, was also a merciless force. He had seen storms before, had witnessed the raw strength of nature when it chose to show its wrath. But watching the ship, his ship, now caught in the grip of the storm, sent a chill through his bones. The waves rose, tall and angry, crashing against the hull with a thunderous roar. The ship, though strong and resilient, seemed to shrink before the vastness of the storm's fury. The sails, once billowing proudly in the wind, were now strained, pulled to their limits as the ship fought against the rising tide. The crew, too, was struggling, their faces grim as they worked with a frantic urgency, battling to control the ship. The shipbuilder could see the figures of the sailors on deck, moving swiftly, their hands tightening ropes, adjusting sails, and steering the ship through the increasingly treacherous waters. The captain stood at the helm, his face set in determination, though his eyes betrayed the uncertainty of the storm's unpredictable course. The shipbuilder could feel a knot of worry tighten in his chest, but he knew there was nothing he could do now. The ship was out there, alone on the churning sea, facing the storm that would test it in ways no one could have anticipated. In the distance, the storm raged with an intensity that seemed to have no end. The thunder rumbled in the sky, while flashes of lightning cracked through the darkness, illuminating the ship's silhouette for mere moments before plunging it back into shadow. The waves, relentless and powerful, battered the ship, throwing it about like a leaf in the wind. The crew fought valiantly, their faces twisted with determination, but even they could not hide the fear that flickered in their eyes. They had all known the risks when they set sail, but nothing could have prepared them for the savage force of nature they now faced. As the shipbuilder stood on the shore, watching the storm tear at his creation, memories flooded his mind. He thought back to the countless hours spent shaping the wood, crafting the hull, and tying the rigging. Every detail had been carefully considered, every seam reinforced, every joint secured. He had poured his heart and soul into this ship, and now here it was, fighting against the very elements it had been designed to withstand. A part of him wanted to run to the shore to find some way to help, but deep down, he knew that this was a battle that the ship and the crew had to face alone. This was the test, the moment when all the hours of labor, the skill, and the dedication of the shipbuilder would be proved. The storm raged on, its fury unrelenting. The ship creaked and groaned under the pressure, but it held together, its frame sturdy, its sails intact. The crew continued their work with unflagging effort, each sailor pushing their limits, refusing to yield. The shipbuilder could see the determination in their eyes, and despite the storm's violent chaos, he felt a surge of hope. He had built this ship to endure, and it was doing just that. As the minutes dragged on into hours, the ship began to emerge from the worst of the storm. The wind, though still fierce, was beginning to shift. The waves, though still towering, were no longer crashing with the same unbridled violence. The storm, as quickly as it had risen, began to ebb away, its fury spent, its power fading. The ship, battered but resolute, continued on, cutting through the water with a renewed strength. Slowly, the sky began to clear, the dark clouds parting to reveal a glimmer of sunlight. The storm, though terrifying, had passed, and in its wake, the ship had survived. The shipbuilder, watching from the shore, felt a deep, profound relief. His creation, though tested in ways he had never imagined, had endured. And in that moment, he knew that this ship, with all its imperfections and strengths, was ready for the world beyond. It had faced the storm, and it had emerged victorious. The shipbuilder stood silently for a while longer, watching the ship sail on, now free from the storm's grip. He could still see the crew on deck, their movements a little slower, their expressions worn but triumphant. He knew that this journey would continue, and that there would be more storms ahead, but for now, the ship had proven itself. And with that, the shipbuilder felt a deep sense of satisfaction settle over him. He had done it. The ship had been tested, and it had survived. And as he watched it disappear into the horizon, he couldn't help but smile, knowing that the ship's journey was only just beginning. The sun finally emerged from behind the retreating clouds, its golden rays casting a warm glow over the water's surface. The storm had passed, but its aftermath lingered in the heavy air, still charged with the remnants of the night's fury. The ship, battered but unbroken, continued its steady journey, cutting through the waves with a renewed sense of purpose. The crew, though weary from the ordeal, had regained their focus, and their eyes were no longer filled with fear, but with a quiet determination. They had faced the storm, survived its relentless assault, and now they were ready to push forward. The shipbuilder, watching from the shore, felt a deep sense of pride swell within him. The storm had been a trial, one he had known was inevitable. Yet nothing could have prepared him for the emotional weight of seeing his creation endure it. The ship had held together, its frame strong and resilient, its sails intact, its rigging secure. It had withstood the storm, not just as a vessel, but as a testament to the craftsmanship that had gone into its making. As the shipbuilder stood on the shore, the sound of the crew's efforts reached him faintly. He could hear the occasional order shouted, the steady rhythm of their movements, and the creak of the ship's hull as it glided through the water. Despite the toll the storm had taken, there was an air of calm now, a sense of peace settling over the ship and its crew. The shipbuilder closed his eyes for a moment, allowing the warmth of the sun to wash over him. It felt like a reward after the chaos, a reminder that after every storm, there would always be a return to calm. It was a rhythm of nature, one that he had come to understand deeply in his years as a shipbuilder. He had seen many ships leave port, and he had witnessed their return. Some had weathered the storms, others had not. But in this moment, he was certain that his ship would make it through. It had proven itself. The crew, too, seemed to have found their rhythm again. The captain stood at the helm, his gaze steady, his posture resolute. The crew worked in unison, their movements synchronized with the ship's gentle sway as it sailed through the calmer waters. There was no longer a sense of panic, only the quiet hum of hard work and the slow, steady progress of a journey that had only just begun. As the ship sailed further into the open sea, the shipbuilder's thoughts turned to the future. The ship was ready for whatever lay ahead. The storm had been its trial by fire, and it had come through stronger. But beyond the storm, there were many more challenges to face, many more unknowns to explore. The world beyond the horizon was vast and mysterious, and for all the shipbuilder knew, there would be storms even fiercer than the one they had just endured. But he had no doubt in his mind that his ship would be ready. It had been crafted with love and care, with the strength of 1,000 generations of shipbuilders woven into its very frame. It was not just a ship. It was a vessel of hope, a symbol of endurance, and a promise of new horizons. The shipbuilder opened his eyes and watched. As the ship sailed steadily into the distance, the water, now calm and glistening in the sunlight, stretched out endlessly before it. He could see the crew on deck, their faces now filled with the confidence that came from surviving a great trial. The storm had tested them, but it had also made them stronger. He knew that from this point forward, nothing would stand in their way. The ship had proven itself in the storm, and now it would prove itself in the vast, open sea. The shipbuilder stood there for a long time, watching as the ship gradually became a small silhouette on the horizon. There was a part of him that wanted to follow it, to continue the journey alongside it, but he knew his role had come to an end. He had built the ship. Now it was the ship's turn to journey into the unknown. He smiled quietly to himself, a deep sense of satisfaction washing over him. The ship had survived the storm, and it would continue to survive. It was no longer just a piece of wood and tar. It was a living, breathing entity, ready to carry its crew wherever the winds would take them. As the last rays of sunlight faded, over the horizon, the shipbuilder turned and began his walk back to the village. He knew that this moment would stay with him forever. It was the culmination of years of work, of dedication, and of passion. The ship was his legacy, and now it would carry his name far and wide. He had given it life, and in return, it would live on long after he was gone. The calm after the storm was a peaceful reprieve, but it was also a beginning. For the ship, for the crew, and for the shipbuilder himself, the journey was only just beginning. The wind had shifted, carrying with it the scent of distant lands, and the ship pressed on through the open sea. The crew, ever vigilant, looked out across the horizon, their eyes scanning the water for signs of land or ships. But the vast expanse of the ocean held only the endless, tranquil blue. The storm was now a distant memory, but the calmness of the sea was a new challenge altogether. The shipbuilder, now far from the shore he had once known, stood at the edge of the deck, feeling the sea spray against his skin as he looked ahead. He knew that the journey ahead was uncharted, no maps, no guides, only the vast, unyielding ocean. And yet, there was something in his heart, a sense of excitement mixed with apprehension, that told him this was the moment he had been building toward. This was where the ship and its crew would find out what they were truly capable of. The captain, standing at the helm, had his hands firmly gripping the wheel, his face set with determination. He had been through storms before, but now he was navigating the ship through the open waters with no land in sight. It was a test of trust in the ship, trust in the crew, and trust in the very craft that had brought them this far. The shipbuilder's thoughts drifted to the countless hours he had spent designing the ship, choosing each timber, each sail, each rope with meticulous care. He had crafted it for this moment, when the ship would venture into the unknown, carrying those who trusted it beyond the safety of familiar shores. His work was more than just a vessel of wood and tar. It was a symbol of human ambition, a testament to the will to explore, to discover, and to conquer the vastness of the world. The crew had settled into their routines, each member knowing their task and performing it with quiet efficiency. The cook stirred a pot of stew below deck, the sounds of laughter drifting up from the galley, while the sailors took turns at the rigging, adjusting the sails to catch the changing wind. The ship seemed to breathe with life, its creaks and groans blending with the crests of the waves. There was a rhythm to it now, a harmony that the shipbuilder had only dreamed of in his workshops. The ship was no longer just a project. It was alive, and it was moving toward something greater. The hours passed slowly, but the crew did not grow weary. Instead, they found solace in the steady motion of the ship, the familiar sway of the water beneath them. The shipbuilder could see it. In their faces, the certainty that this ship, his ship, would carry them safely through whatever came next. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the deck, the shipbuilder's thoughts turned inward. He had always known that the sea was a place of mystery and danger, a place where the unknown lurked beneath the surface. But now, as he stood on the edge of the ship, the reality of it all settled over him. They were truly on their own. The land they had known was far behind them, and the vast ocean stretched out before them, endless and full of promise, but also peril. The shipbuilder closed his eyes for a moment, breathing in the salt air. He felt the pulse of the ship beneath him, the creaking of the timbers, the steady rhythm of its journey. In that moment, he understood something that he hadn't fully realized before, that the ship was not just a tool to carry the crew to their destination. It was part of them, a reflection of their hopes and fears, their courage and resolve. It was as much a part of their journey as they were of it. Suddenly, a shout broke through the stillness of the evening. The lookout, perched high in the crow's nest, had spotted something on the horizon. The crew scrambled into action, their movements swift and coordinated. The captain barked orders, and the shipbuilder, his heart racing, joined them on deck. The lookout's cry had been brief but urgent. There was land ahead, or at least something on the horizon. As the crew rushed to adjust the sails and alter their course, the shipbuilder found himself standing at the rail, staring into the distance. The faint silhouette of land, barely visible against the setting sun, seemed to beckon them. It was an island, or perhaps a distant continent. No one knew. But it was something. It was a promise that the unknown was not as vast as it seemed. The shipbuilder's pulse quickened as the crew worked together, each person fulfilling their role with precision. The ship, which had been their steadfast companion, now seemed to hum with energy. It was no longer just carrying them through the waters. It was guiding them towards something new, something beyond the horizon. The wind picked up, and the ship surged forward, its sails billowing in the strong gusts. The island, if it was indeed an island, grew closer with every passing moment. The shipbuilder's heart was full as he stood on the deck, watching the land take shape before him. There was still uncertainty ahead, still a great unknown waiting to be discovered. But in that moment, he knew that they had made it. They had crossed into the uncharted, and they had done it together. The shipbuilder's gaze shifted to the crew, their faces a mixture of excitement and apprehension. They had no idea what lay ahead, what challenges or rewards awaited them on this distant land. But they were ready. They were ready because they had something that the storm had proven they needed, the trust in each other, and in the ship that had brought them this far. And now, as the island grew larger, the shipbuilder could see in the faces of the crew that they, too, were beginning to understand the significance of this moment. They had come far, but this was only the beginning. There was so much more to discover, and they would do it together on the ship that had carried them through the storm and would now carry them into the unknown. As the ship glided closer to the land, the tension that had held the crew in check seemed to dissolve, replaced by a new kind of anticipation. The island on the horizon was no longer a distant shadow, but a solid, tangible place, its outline growing, clearer with every turn of the wheel. The captain stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the incoming shore, while the shipbuilder moved across the deck, a steady rhythm in his steps. His hands rested lightly on the railing, but his mind raced. The island was small, but promised mysteries that far outweighed its size. The crew was silent, caught between hope and uncertainty. It had been months since they had left the safety of the familiar shore, and now, with land so close, every heart beat faster. For some, the island was a new beginning. For others, it was a place of dread, unknown and uncharted. The wind pushed them forward, and the shipbuilder stood, observing the quiet chaos of the crew preparing for docking. His mind, however, was not just on the land they were approaching, but on the work he had done to prepare for this moment. Every plank, every rope, every nail he had hammered in each had led to this moment, this crossing into new waters. The ship had borne them faithfully, through calm and storm alike. Now, as it approached the shore, it was his creation that would guide them into the unknown. The island's coast was rocky, jagged cliffs rising steeply from the water's edge, broken only by narrow inlets. The captain gave a series of orders, and the ship began to slow, its sails slowly catching less wind as they neared the shore. The crew readied their lines, preparing to drop anchor and set foot on land that had been but a dream for so long. The shipbuilder watched the land draw nearer, the colors of the trees and rock starting to become clear. The greenery of the island was unlike any he had seen before, lush, thick with foliage, and vibrant under the sunlight that filtered through the clouds. As the ship docked with a soft thud against the rocky shore, the crew sprang into action, unloading crates, securing the ship's lines, and preparing for the first steps on land that had been but a dream for so long. There was a hushed energy about them now. There were no loud cheers or triumphant shouts, only quiet determination, as though the moment of arrival demanded reverence. The shipbuilder turned back to the ship, watching the crew work with practiced ease. His creation had done its part. Now it was time for them to take the next step into the island's embrace. He felt a strange sense of completion. The ship was no longer just a project. It had become a companion, a trusted friend. He knew that wherever this island led them, it was his ship that had made it possible, carrying them across treacherous waters into the vast unknown. With a final glance at the deck, he climbed down to the shore, his boots crunching on the pebbles beneath him. The air was thick with the scent of salt water and earth. The island seemed to hum with life, though it was eerily silent. He looked around, noticing the absence of any sounds, other than the gentle waves and the creaking of the ship's masts as it swayed gently in the current. There was no sign of civilization, no welcoming party or ships in the distance. Only trees and cliffs, dark and looming. Yet, despite the stillness, the shipbuilder felt a pull toward the depths of the island, toward something just beyond the tree line. It was as though the land was calling to him, beckoning him to venture further. The crew gathered on the shore, waiting for the captain's command to proceed. They knew that this island, though uninhabited by man, was far from empty. The rumors of wild animals, dangerous terrain, and strange, mysterious forces filled the air like an unspoken weight. The captain stood tall, his weathered face betraying no emotion, but his eyes scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of movement, any clue to what lay ahead. The shipbuilder joined the captain, his feet sinking slightly into the soft earth. Together, they stood side by side, staring into the dense forest that stretched ahead of them. The trees were enormous, their trunks thick and gnarled, their branches twisting toward the sky like ancient fingers reaching for the heavens. A sense of foreboding settled over the shipbuilder, but there was something else too. Something ancient, something inviting. "Do you feel that?" the shipbuilder asked, his voice low and barely audible against the wind. The captain turned. To him, his expression unreadable. "Feel what?" "That pull. The way the land seems to be." "Calling," the shipbuilder replied, feeling a slight unease in his chest. "I don't know how to explain it." The captain did not respond immediately. Instead, he looked back toward the island, his eyes narrowing as though trying to read the land. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady. "We've come this far. We'll go further." He turned to the crew and raised his hand, signaling them to prepare. The land may be wild, but it's ours now. Let's explore. The crew, having heard their captain's words, began to pack their gear, preparing for the expedition ahead. They had no maps, no knowledge of what dangers or treasures lay hidden in the heart of the island, but their resolve was stronger than any fear. The shipbuilder watched them, knowing that each of them, in their own way, had a stake in this journey. They were not just following orders, they were embarking on something much greater, something that would define them all. As the first group of explorers set off toward the tree line, the shipbuilder stood in the back, watching the shadows of the forest swallow them whole. The island was alive with mystery, and he could feel its pulse beneath his feet. For the first time since leaving the shores of home, he felt truly alive, as though he had crossed into another world entirely, one where the rules of the sea and sky no longer applied. He stepped forward, joining the crew, and the forest's dark canopy welcomed them. The world outside their ship seemed so different, yet familiar, as though they had always belonged here, even though they had never set foot in this strange land. The island whispered its secrets, waiting for them to uncover them one by one. And as they disappeared deeper into the wild heart of the island, the shipbuilder couldn't help but feel that they were just beginning their journey. A journey that had only just begun with the ship and would continue into the mysterious, uncharted lands that lay ahead. The island's dense forest was a world of its own, where the air was thick with the scent of damp earth, rich foliage, and the distant crash of unseen waters. As the crew ventured deeper, the canopy above them thickened, filtering the sunlight into faint beams that barely pierced the tangled branches. The shipbuilder walked quietly at the back of the group, his boots sinking slightly into the soft earth with each step. Every so often, he would stop and let his fingers graze the bark of the ancient trees, feeling the rough texture beneath his touch, as if grounding himself to the land. He was more attuned to the island now, its presence overwhelming, yet strangely comforting. There was something about the land here that both beckoned and warned. The crew had begun to whisper about strange noises in the night, unexplained movements, and eerie sounds that echoed through the trees, unsettling even the hardiest of sailors. The shipbuilder, however, felt something different. A connection. It was as if the land was not just waiting for them, but aware of them, watching their every move. The deeper they went, the more the air seemed to change, thickening with a strange energy that prickled the skin. Even the crew had begun to grow quiet, their steps more cautious, their eyes darting to the shadows beneath the trees. The captain, ever the leader, kept his gaze fixed ahead, though even he seemed unsettled by the thick silence that enveloped them. Hours passed, and the forest gave way to a small clearing, its center dominated by a massive stone formation. The shipbuilder stopped in his tracks, his breath catching in his chest. The stones were unlike any he had seen before. They were enormous, each one shaped as though by human hands, but they were covered in moss and vines, as if nature itself had taken them back. Strange markings were etched into the surface of the rocks, lines and symbols that seemed to pulse with a faint, otherworldly light. The crew gathered around, murmuring in awe and apprehension. No one spoke, but the unease was palpable. They had stumbled upon something ancient, something beyond their understanding. The captain moved forward first, placing a hand gently on the stone. His fingers traced the markings, and a low hum seemed to resonate through the air. The shipbuilder felt the sound deep within his bones, vibrating in the very core of his being. He stepped closer, the pull of the stones irresistible, and placed his own hand upon the stone. As soon as his skin made contact, a shock wave of energy passed through him, knocking him back a step. His heart raced, and for a moment, he thought he might lose his balance. But the moment passed. A sudden clarity swept over him, a sense of purpose that he couldn't explain. This place, this island, had been waiting for them. It wasn't just an island, it was a gateway, a threshold between worlds. The markings on the stones were not just symbols, they were instructions. He could see them now, the lines and shapes forming patterns in his mind's eye. It was a map that led somewhere deep within the island, to a place that had been hidden for centuries. The captain turned to the crew, his face pale but determined. "We need to move forward," he said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty in his eyes. "There's something here, something important." The shipbuilder didn't need any further urging. He nodded and stepped forward, his hand still tingling from the touch of the stone. The crew followed, though more reluctantly now, each of them sensing the gravity of the moment. As they moved deeper into the island, the forest seemed to grow. Darker, the trees thicker, the air heavier. It felt as though the island itself was closing in on them, and with every step, the path grew more difficult to navigate. The ground was uneven, covered in roots and rocks, but the shipbuilder's feet seemed to find their way effortlessly. His mind was clear, the markings on the stone still etched in his memory, guiding him. As they walked, they began to notice the signs, strange symbols carved into the bark of trees, patterns in the rocks, and the occasional shimmering light in the distance. They were being led, whether by the island itself or something beyond, they could not say. But they were not alone. The deeper they went, the more the island seemed to breathe, as if it had a life of its own. The shipbuilder's pulse quickened. They were getting closer. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they came upon a cavern, its entrance concealed by thick vines and hanging moss. The air was cool here, and the sound of rushing water echoed from within. The captain motioned for the crew to halt, and the shipbuilder stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. This was it. The cavern, like the stones before it, seemed ancient, a place untouched by time. The markings on the rocks, the patterns in the trees, all pointed here. This was where the map had led them. He stepped into the cavern, the crew close behind him. The walls of the cave were smooth, as if they had been shaped by human hands long ago, but they were covered in the same strange symbols that had appeared on the stones outside. The shipbuilder moved deeper into the cavern, his eyes scanning the walls for any clue as to what lay ahead. Suddenly, he froze. There, in the center of the cavern, stood an altar massive, made of stone and covered in the same markings. It pulsed with the same energy he had felt from the stones, and it was clear now that this was no ordinary altar. It was a gateway. The shipbuilder could feel it deep within him. This was the heart of the island, and it held the key to whatever had been hidden here for so long. He stepped forward, his hand reaching toward the stone. As his fingers brushed the surface, the air crackled with energy, and a voice echoed in his mind, ancient and powerful. You have come. The path is open. Will you step through? The air inside the cavern grew heavier with each step the shipbuilder took, the sense of anticipation thickening as he moved closer to the stone altar. The strange markings on the walls seemed to shift, almost alive, as though they were watching, waiting for something or someone. The voice that had spoken to him resonated deeply within his chest, reverberating in a way that made his heart beat faster. It was not a voice in the traditional sense, but more of a presence, a force that carried wisdom and power from an ancient time. He reached out again, this time placing both hands on the altar. As soon as his fingers touched the cool stone, a low hum vibrated through the cavern, and the walls seemed to pulse with energy. The shipbuilder felt his body tense as a powerful surge of energy flowed through him, and for a moment he thought he might collapse under its intensity. The air became electric, filled with an ancient force that seemed to reach into the very fabric of the island itself. The crew, still standing at the entrance to the cavern, could only watch in awe as the shipbuilder's form began to glow faintly, his features illuminated by the shifting patterns of the stone. The voice spoke again, clearer now, echoing in the shipbuilder's mind like a forgotten memory coming back to life. You have touched the heart of the island. You have awakened us. As the words settled into his consciousness, the shipbuilder's breath caught in his throat. What did this mean? Who were we, and what had been awakened? He felt the ground beneath him tremble slightly, and the cavern seemed to shift, the walls contracting and expanding like the beating of a heart. He could sense, more than see, a presence stirring deep within the stone, a presence that had been dormant for centuries. The crew stirred uneasily, and the captain called out, his voice anxious. What's happening? What's going on? But the shipbuilder could not respond, for he was no longer entirely aware of his own body. His mind had opened up to something greater, something ancient and powerful, and his thoughts felt like a mere whisper in the vastness of this presence. The shipbuilder's vision blurred, and for a brief moment he felt as if he was being pulled into the very stones around him. A sharp intake of breath broke through the silence as his feet left the ground. The crew gasped, but the shipbuilder was oblivious to them now, caught in a vision far beyond the reach of ordinary men. His senses were overloaded with images vast, sprawling landscapes of a world untouched by time, civilizations long past, and ancient beings that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Their eyes were deep pools of wisdom and sadness, their features carved from the very stone he was now connected to. He saw them, guardians of the island, waiting for the one who could awaken them from their slumber. These guardians, made from stone and the very life force of the island, were protectors of an ancient secret that had been kept hidden from the world for millennia. The shipbuilder's mind raced to comprehend the enormity of what he was experiencing. He had always known that this island was special, but never in his wildest imagination could he have dreamed of something so powerful, so ancient. The guardians had been sealed away, waiting for the moment when someone worthy would come to claim the island's secrets. He realized in that moment that the island was not just a place, it was a living entity, a force of nature that had chosen to remain hidden until now. The guardians, once protectors of ancient knowledge and wisdom, had been dormant for centuries, their forms encased in stone, waiting for someone who could unlock their power. The shipbuilder's role was clear now, as though the island itself had chosen him. He was the one to release them, to awaken the guardians and bring their power back into the world. The images in his mind shifted again, and he felt himself drawn deeper into the vision, feeling the weight of history, the burden of knowledge. He saw the last battle fought by the Guardians, a war that had nearly torn the island apart, leaving the island's magic dormant and its protectors imprisoned within the stone. The Guardians had fought against an ancient enemy, a force of darkness that had sought to claim the island's power for itself. The battle had been long and brutal, and in the end, the Guardians had chosen to sacrifice their freedom, sealing themselves away to prevent the enemy from ever returning. But now, centuries later, the enemy's influence was stirring once again, and the shipbuilder realized that the awakening of the Guardians had not been by chance. The island was not just a place of power. It was the key to stopping a darkness that threatened to rise once more. The Guardians were not merely protectors, they were warriors, and their fight was far from over. As the vision faded, the shipbuilder felt himself being pulled back to the present. His feet touched the ground once more, and the strange energy that had enveloped him slowly began to dissipate. He blinked, disoriented, and looked around at the crew. The captain was standing closest to him, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. "What happened?" the captain asked, his voice low. The shipbuilder did not answer immediately. He was still reeling from the vision, the weight of the knowledge that had been revealed to him settling deep in his soul. He looked around at the crew, his gaze meeting theirs one by one, each of them sensing the change in him. He had seen the truth, and now the burden of that truth lay on his shoulders. "We have awakened the Guardians," he said finally, his voice steady but filled with a deep, unwavering certainty. "And with them, the island's secret. We are the last line of defense against a darkness that is returning. We cannot turn back now." The crew stood in stunned silence, each person grappling with the enormity of the words the shipbuilder had spoken. They had come to this island seeking treasure and adventure, but they had found something far more dangerous and far more important. The shipbuilder turned toward the stone altar once more, his gaze lingering on the strange symbols that still pulsed with energy. He knew that their journey was only just beginning. The Guardians had been awakened, but the battle was far from over. The darkness that had once sought to claim the island's power would not rest, and neither would they. The island's secret was now their responsibility, and they would fight to protect it with everything they had. The journey had taken them deep into the heart of the island, but what the shipbuilder and his crew had discovered, it was far beyond their wildest imaginations. As they made their way back to the village, the weight of the ancient knowledge they now carried pressed heavily on their shoulders. The Guardians were awake, yes, but so too was the darkness they had been sealed away to protect the world from. With each passing hour, the crew could feel the shifting air around them. The island was no longer silent. It was alive, vibrating with the awakening force of an ancient conflict. The shipbuilder had not expected this. What had begun as a quest for treasure, adventure, and the discovery of a long-lost civilization had turned into something far more dangerous, something that tied the fates of all who sailed upon the seas to the ancient forces that now stirred on this island. They had been warned by the Guardians, the ancient protectors of this sacred land, that the enemy was not a mere memory, but a living presence that had waited for the moment when its prison could be undone. That moment was now, and the darkness was stirring. The crew could feel it in the air, an unsettling chill that had not been there before. The shipbuilder could hear the faint whispers in his mind, the warnings that echoed from the depths of the stone altar where the Guardians had awakened. The darkness was not something that could be fought with weapons alone. It was an ancient evil, bound to the island and its secrets, and it sought to consume everything in its path. As the days passed, the shipbuilder's sense of urgency grew. They needed to act fast, to find a way to stop the dark forces from returning to full strength. The island's secrets were many, and the guardians had given them the key, but the puzzle was far from solved. The shadows that stretched across the land at night felt darker than before, and the creatures that roamed the forests and mountains seemed to whisper of something older, something more dangerous. The shipbuilder knew they couldn't stay on the island much longer. He had to find the heart of the darkness, to destroy it before it could consume the island once more. His heart heavy with the knowledge that they were fighting not just for their survival, but for the very fate of the world, he turned to his crew. They were tired, weary from the long voyage and the trials they had faced, but there was no turning back now. The fate of the island and perhaps the world rested in their hands. They would need to travel deeper into the unknown parts of the island, to places no one had dared venture before. But they had no choice. The darkness would not wait. The crew, despite their doubts and fears, followed their captain and the shipbuilder as they made their way through the dense, foreboding forest. The trees seemed to close in around them, casting deep shadows that swallowed the light. There was an eerie silence that surrounded them, as if the island itself was holding its breath, waiting for what was to come. As they journeyed further, the shipbuilder felt an almost palpable weight on his chest, a sense that the island was alive and watching them, and that the forces of darkness were far closer than they had realized. Each step they took brought them closer to the heart of the island, where the final battle would be fought. The air grew heavier, and the earth beneath their feet seemed to thrum with power. The guardians had awakened to protect the island, but the shipbuilder knew that they could not fight the darkness alone. They would need to unlock all of the island's secrets, to understand its ancient magic, if they were to have any hope of defeating the ancient evil that was stirring once more. The shipbuilder and his crew were not alone in this fight. The guardians, powerful as they were, could only do so much. The shipbuilder felt the power of the island, but he knew that to unlock its full potential, they needed to find the source of the darkness and destroy it. The island's ancient forces, which had been dormant for so long, would not be easily defeated. They had to act quickly, and they had to be united. With determination and the weight of their task pressing down upon them, they pressed forward through thick brambles and dark, winding paths until they reached a clearing where a massive stone structure stood, half buried in the earth. It was unlike anything they had seen before, an ancient temple, a place of power that had been hidden from the world for millennia. The stone structure was covered in intricate carvings and strange symbols, and the air around it crackled with energy. The guardians had spoken of this place, the place where the heart of the island's power lay hidden, but they had never revealed its exact location. The shipbuilder knew, however, that this was the heart of the island's ancient magic, and it was here that the final battle would take place. As they stepped closer to the temple, the ground shook beneath their feet, and the sound of distant thunder rumbled through the air. The darkness was close, and it was growing stronger. The shipbuilder turned to his crew, his heart pounding with the weight of the task before them. This was the moment they had all been preparing for, the final stand against the ancient evil that threatened to destroy everything. With his crew by his side, the shipbuilder took a deep breath and stepped forward, knowing that the fate of the island and perhaps the world rested in their hands. The guardians would protect them, but the shipbuilder and his crew would have to be the ones to face the darkness head-on. The time had come to end a centuries-long struggle between light and dark, and only through their courage and unity could they hope to succeed. Together, they would face the darkness and reclaim the island's power before it was lost forever. As the shipbuilder and his weary crew stood before the ancient temple, the looming presence of darkness seemed to press in on them from all sides. The air was thick with tension, each breath they took laden with the weight of history and the now unknown. The stone temple, towering above them with its weathered walls and cryptic carvings, seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as if it were the heart of the island, and the island itself was watching them. The shipbuilder could feel the power that radiated from the structure, an energy that seemed both ancient and terrifying, alive with untold secrets. He could sense the darkness, too, its presence tangible, creeping along the edges of their minds, threatening to engulf them all. It was the last bastion of evil, waiting to be unleashed upon the world once more. But the shipbuilder knew that their only chance at survival lay in unlocking the temple's mysteries. As they crossed the threshold, a heavy silence fell over them. The echoes of their footsteps reverberated in the vast chamber, swallowed by the stone walls. Inside, the air was colder, a temperature dropping sharply, as if the building itself had drawn in the warmth from the outside world. The temple's interior was vast and empty, save for a stone altar at its center, covered in dust and shrouded in shadows. Strange symbols lined the walls, each one pulsing with faint, eerie light, casting unsettling reflections that danced across the floor. The guardians, once protectors of the island's sacred power, had warned the shipbuilder that only through the discovery of the island's deepest secrets could they hope to face the encroaching darkness. Now, standing in the heart of the temple, the shipbuilder felt the weight of that truth more than ever. They had entered the temple not just to uncover knowledge, but to awaken the ancient forces that lay dormant within its walls, forces that could either be their salvation or their doom. The shipbuilder approached the altar, his heart pounding in his chest, as if the temple itself were alive and aware of his presence. As his hand brushed the stone surface, a sudden tremor shook the ground beneath their feet, and the walls of the temple seemed to groan, as though they had been disturbed from a long, uneasy slumber. For a moment, the shipbuilder hesitated, his mind racing with the possibilities of what they had just unleashed. But there was no turning back now. He knew that they were on the precipice of a battle that would determine the fate of the island, and perhaps the world itself. The dark forces had been sealed away for centuries, but the time for their return had come, and only by awakening the island's hidden power could they hope to stand against them. The shipbuilder's hand hovered over the altar as the room began to hum with an almost imperceptible energy. The carvings on the walls started to glow brighter, their ancient symbols coming to life in a way that seemed almost unnatural. It was as if the temple itself had recognized their presence, acknowledging their role in the grand scheme of things. With a steady breath, the shipbuilder pressed his palm against the altar. In that instant, the room seemed to explode with light, a blinding flash that filled every corner of the temple. The shipbuilder stumbled back, his eyes adjusting to the sudden brightness, and when the light finally faded, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The altar had cracked open, revealing a hidden chamber beneath, one that had been sealed for centuries. The darkness, long dormant, had stirred. From within the depths of the chamber, a low, guttural sound began to echo, growing louder with each passing second. It was as though the very earth beneath their feet was crying out in pain, and the shipbuilder felt a chill seep into his bones. He knew the darkness had awakened, and that their time was running out. The shipbuilder turned to his crew, his voice hoarse with urgency. "We must act quickly," he said, his words trembling with the gravity of the situation. "We've awakened something ancient and powerful. We need to find the heart of the darkness before it's too late." The crew, their faces etched with determination, nodded in agreement. The battle was far from over. They had ventured deep into the island's heart, and now they would face its greatest threat. Together, they stepped into the chamber, the floor beneath them shifting with each step. The walls closed in around them, the air growing thicker as the darkness intensified. The shipbuilder could feel the presence of something malevolent, something ancient and powerful, creeping ever closer. But they could not turn back. They had come too far to fail now. Their only chance at survival was to face the darkness head-on, to find a way to bind it once more, before it could spread across the island and beyond. The shipbuilder's heart raced as they moved deeper into the chamber, the air growing colder, the darkness pressing in from all sides. There was no time to waste. They had to find the source of the evil and stop it from consuming everything in its path. The island's fate and the fate of the world hung in the balance. The shipbuilder could feel the weight of the task before them, but he also felt the presence of the island's power alive, ancient, and waiting to be harnessed. It was up to him and his crew to ensure that the darkness was sealed away once more, before it could consume everything they had fought for. The chamber loomed before them, a place of unimaginable power, and the final showdown had begun. The shipbuilder's heart pounded as they descended deeper into the bowels of the temple, each step more uncertain than the last. The air grew thick with the unmistakable presence of something ancient, something far older than the temple itself. It was as though the island itself had been holding its breath for centuries, waiting for the moment when the darkness would return. The walls of the chamber pulsed with an eerie light, the carvings on the stones shifting as if alive, watching them with malevolent eyes. The stone beneath their feet trembled, and a low, guttural hum filled the air, coming from the very heart of the temple. The shipbuilder could feel the presence of the darkness, pressing in on them from all sides, its power suffocating. It was everywhere, an omnipresent force that threatened to consume them whole. But they could not stop now. Their quest had led them to this very moment. The crew moved silently behind the shipbuilder, their expressions grim, knowing that the fate of the island, perhaps the world itself, rested on their shoulders. As they reached the heart of the chamber, the sight before them was nothing short of awe-inspiring. In the center of the room stood a massive, blackened altar, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to pulse with a dark energy. Atop the altar, a glowing orb, the source of the island's torment, floated in the air, radiating an unearthly light. The shipbuilder knew without a doubt that this orb was the key to the darkness. It was the heart of the evil that had plagued the island for centuries, a force that had been sealed away long ago, but had now been released by their intrusion into the temple's depths. The orb shimmered in the dim light, its surface rippling, as though something within it stirred, ready to break free. It was the darkness itself, a living, breathing entity, its hunger insatiable. The shipbuilder's mind raced as he recalled the words of the guardians. The only way to stop the darkness was to find the key to sealing it away once more. But where was it? He looked to his crew, their faces filled with fear and determination, and felt a surge of resolve. They had come this far, and they would not fail now. "We need to destroy the orb," the shipbuilder said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "It is the source of the darkness. If we don't destroy it, everything we fought for will be lost." His crew nodded, weapons drawn, their hands trembling but resolute. They had prepared for this moment, but the task ahead was unlike any challenge they had faced. As they advanced toward the altar, the air grew colder, the darkness around them thickening. The shipbuilder felt the pull of the orb, an unnatural force that sought to draw them closer, to make them one with its malevolent energy. But he resisted, holding firm to his purpose. They could not allow themselves to fall into its grip. The shipbuilder reached for his dagger, the one he had carried through every battle, every trial. It had become a symbol of his strength, his unwavering determination. With a steady hand, he approached the altar, the orb now glowing brighter, its energy swirling in a violent dance. As his fingers brushed against the surface, the orb flared to life, and a deafening roar echoed through the temple. The darkness exploded outward, filling the chamber with an overwhelming pressure. The shipbuilder was thrown backward, crashing into the stone walls. His vision blurred as the force of the darkness threatened to overtake him. But through the haze, he saw his crew struggling to rise, their faces contorted in agony as they fought. Against the pull of the orb, "We need to destroy it," the shipbuilder shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of the darkness. But the orb's power was too strong. The shipbuilder's hands trembled as he struggled to regain his footing, his body aching from the impact. He knew that they were running out of time. The darkness would consume them all, unless they found a way to break the orb's hold. Desperation surged within him. He reached deep into his heart, drawing on every ounce of strength, every memory of their journey, every sacrifice they had made. With a cry of defiance, he lunged forward, his dagger aimed directly at the orb. In that instant, the temple trembled, the walls cracking as the orb pulsed with a blinding light. Time seemed to stretch, and for a moment, everything went still. The shipbuilder's dagger sank deep into the orb, and the world around him shattered. There was an explosion of light, followed by an eerie silence. The darkness that had consumed the temple vanished, leaving nothing but the cold stone and the fading echoes of what had once been. The shipbuilder stood alone in the aftermath, his body battered, his mind reeling from the intensity of what had just occurred. But he knew, deep down, that they had succeeded. The darkness was gone. The orb, now shattered into 1,000 pieces, lay scattered across the altar, its malevolent power extinguished. The island was free. The shipbuilder looked to his crew, their faces weary but triumphant. They had faced the darkness together and emerged victorious. As the light of dawn filtered through the broken walls of the temple, the shipbuilder felt a sense of peace wash over him. Their journey was over. The island had been saved, and the shipbuilder, once a simple craftsman, had become the protector of its future. The shipbuilder and his crew emerged from the depths of the temple, their bodies weary, but their spirits lifted by the weight of their success. The morning sun bathed the island in a soft golden light, casting long shadows as they made their way back through the dense forest. The air was different, now clearer, as though the very land had been relieved of the burden that had long plagued it. With each step, the shipbuilder could feel the presence of the island's ancient power, receding, replaced by a newfound peace. The birds sang louder, their songs echoing through the trees, and the rustling of leaves in the breeze felt more like a gentle sigh than the ominous whisper it had once been. As they approached the village, the familiar sights of the wooden huts and the stone paths brought a sense of comfort to the shipbuilder. The villagers had been waiting for their return, their faces alight with curiosity and hope. They had heard the stories of the darkness that had gripped the island, but none could have known the true extent of what had been at stake. Now, as the shipbuilder and his crew stepped into the village, the tension that had hung in the air for so long began to dissipate. The people gathered around them, their eyes filled with awe and gratitude. The shipbuilder could hear the murmurs of relief spreading through the crowd, the whispers of wonder at what had been accomplished. "It's over," one of the villagers sighed, a woman with tears in her eyes. "You've freed us." The shipbuilder nodded, but inside, a heavy burden still weighed on his heart. They had won, yes, but at what cost? How many sacrifices had been made along the way? How many had fallen to ensure that the darkness would never return? The memories of their journey, of the battles fought, the lives lost, and the struggles endured, flooded his mind, threatening to overwhelm him. But there was no time for grief now. The village needed them, and they needed to rebuild. "We've done it together," the shipbuilder said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "But the work is far from over. This island, this people, it's up to us to make sure it stays safe. We need to rebuild, to honor those who gave their lives, and to ensure that the darkness never returns. The villagers nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. They had been spared, but the future was uncertain. The shipbuilder's crew, though tired, was already preparing to help the village rebuild. They would restore the temple's ancient defenses, not just as a reminder of what had happened, but as a symbol of the strength they had found within themselves. Together, they would restore the balance that had been lost, and they would forge a new path forward, one built on unity and strength. The days that followed were filled with work. The shipbuilder's hands, once used to the delicate crafting of wood, were now stained with the sweat and effort of rebuilding. The villagers and the crew worked side by side, restoring the old structures and creating new ones, their shared purpose giving them strength. The shipbuilder's heart swelled with pride as he watched the village come back to life. It was no longer a place of fear and sorrow, but one of hope and renewal. As the sun set on their first day of rebuilding, the shipbuilder stood at the edge of the village, looking out over the ocean that had once been a source of terror. Now, it felt like a symbol of possibility. That darkness had been vanquished, and in its place was a future full of potential. He knew that there would be challenges ahead. There always were. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of peace. The island was safe. The villagers were free. And he had played a part in shaping their future. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, the shipbuilder took a deep breath and turned toward the village. His journey had been long, filled with trials and hardships, but it had led him to this moment. The island was no longer a place of fear and danger. It was home. And as he walked back to the heart of the village, surrounded by the people he had saved, he knew that the story of their triumph would live on, carried in the songs of the birds and the whispers of the wind through the trees. The darkness had been defeated, and a new dawn had begun. The village, once shrouded in darkness and fear, now thrived under the vigilant care of the shipbuilder and his crew. Yet, despite the joy that had filled their hearts and the hope that blossomed in their efforts, a sense of unease lingered in. The air like a storm on the horizon, threatening to undo all they had worked for. It was in the quiet moments, when the shipbuilder stood alone by the edge of the now peaceful ocean, that he could feel it most. The land was healing, the villagers were rebuilding, but deep within him, an ancient warning echoed, a warning that spoke of things that could never be fully vanquished, of shadows that always found a way to return. As the days passed, the shipbuilder could see subtle signs that all was not as it seemed. The once abundant trees began to show signs of decay. The flowers that had bloomed so brightly started to wither prematurely, and even the waters of the fjord seemed darker, heavier than before. The villagers, too, began to sense that something was amiss. At night, whispers of unease spread through the community, rumors of strange figures seen at the edges of the forest, fleeting shadows that could not be explained. The shipbuilder tried to ignore the growing sense of dread, focusing instead on his work on rebuilding the temple and reinforcing the island's defenses. But the nagging feeling would not leave him. It was as though something was watching, waiting. One evening, as he walked through the village after a long day of labor, he caught sight of a figure standing at the village's edge, tall and gaunt. With dark eyes that glinted unnaturally in the fading light, the figure stood motionless, watching the shipbuilder as if he had been expected. A chill ran down the shipbuilder's spine as he approached, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. The figure did not speak, but in the silence, the shipbuilder could hear the faintest rustling, like the whisper of leaves in an unnatural wind. He stepped forward cautiously, his hand instinctively reaching for the axe at his side. But before he could act, the figure vanished into the shadows, leaving only an eerie stillness behind. That night, sleep was elusive. The shipbuilder lay awake in his quarters, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. Who was the figure? What did it mean? And most importantly, why did it feel as though the darkness he had once fought had never truly been eradicated, merely hidden, biding its time until it could strike again? His thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. The village elder stood in the doorway, his face grave, his eyes shadowed with concern. "There is something you must see," the elder said, his voice heavy with unease. The shipbuilder followed him through the village, the air thick with tension, the night unusually quiet. They reached the village's edge, where the forest met. The open ground. Here, the elder paused and pointed to the ground. The shipbuilder crouched to examine the tracks, dark, almost ink-like imprints in the earth, stretching from the edge of the forest toward the village. These were no ordinary footprints. They were jagged, unnatural, as though the ground itself had been disturbed by something foul. The shipbuilder's heart raced. "These were not made by any creature of this island," the elder murmured. "Something darker has returned." The weight of his words settled over the shipbuilder like a heavy cloak. The village, though rebuilding, was not safe. The darkness had not been vanquished. It had merely retreated, hiding, waiting for its moment to return. The shipbuilder knew that their fight was far from over. He turned to the elder, his jaw set, determination hardening within him. "We will find it," he said. "And we will end it before it has a chance to spread again." The elder nodded, his expression a mixture of sorrow and resolve. "The island is old," he said, "and its secrets run deep. What we have faced before may be only a shadow of what is to come." With those words, the shipbuilder knew that the storm was gathering once again. The battle was not over. It had only just begun. The days following the eerie discovery were filled with a tense silence, as though the island itself had drawn a deep breath in anticipation of what was to come. The shipbuilder, restless with the uncertainty that plagued the village, could not shake the feeling that something ancient and dark was stirring beneath the peaceful surface they had fought so hard to restore. He found himself walking the shores of the fjord at all hours, his thoughts consumed with the tracks in the earth, the figure he had seen lurking on the edge of the village, and the sense of foreboding that had settled over him like a dark cloud. The village, once a sanctuary of hope and renewal, now seemed to harbor shadows in every corner. It was during one of these solitary walks that the shipbuilder came across something that sent a chill down his spine. A stone slab, half buried in the sand, its surface covered in ancient runes. He bent down to examine it, the weight of its age pressing on him as he brushed the sand away. The runes were unlike any he had seen before, their lines jagged and sharp, their meaning foreign and cryptic. As his fingers traced the markings, a low hum vibrated through the stone, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to echo from within the earth itself. The shipbuilder recoiled, his heart racing. He knew in that moment that the past he had tried to leave behind had never truly faded. It had merely been waiting for the right moment to resurface. He stood up slowly, the stone's power still thrumming beneath his fingertips, and turned toward the village. It was clear now that the darkness they had faced had roots deeper than any of them had realized. Whatever had once been sealed away was stirring once more, and it would take all of their strength to confront it. As the shipbuilder made his way back to the village, the weight of the discovery pressed heavily upon him. He knew that the time had come to rally the villagers, to gather the strongest and the bravest, for the island's ancient history was far from over, and the storm that loomed on the horizon was one they could not face alone. He sought out the elder, who had always been the keeper of the island's secrets. The elder's face, pale and drawn, reflected the same unease the shipbuilder felt in his chest. "The runes," the elder said softly, as the shipbuilder recounted his discovery. They speak of a time long before us, a time when the island was ruled by powers darker than anything we've known. This land was once a place of great magic, a place where the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead was thin. But something happened, a great betrayal, a sacrifice, and the darkness that ruled the land was sealed away. Or so we thought. The shipbuilder listened intently, his mind racing as the elder spoke. There are those who believe that the darkness was never truly banished, the elder continued, his voice barely a whisper. That it was only bound, locked away beneath the earth. And now the seals are weakening. The storm you feel, it is not just the winds. It is the awakening of what was long forgotten. The shipbuilder's blood ran cold. The island's past, once thought buried in the sands of time, was now surfacing with a vengeance. The runes, the eerie figure, the ominous tracks, they were all part of the same puzzle. He knew now that the village's peace had always been fragile, held together by a thin thread that was on the verge of breaking. That night, the shipbuilder gathered the villagers, their faces lit by the flickering flames of the bonfires they had always used to celebrate the passing of the seasons. But tonight, the mood was somber, heavy with the knowledge of the danger that loomed over them. The elder spoke, recounting the history of the island and the dark forces that had once ruled it. "We are not the first to live on this land," the elder said, his voice steady but laden with the weight of centuries. "And we will not be the last. The island holds memories of power and blood, of magic and sacrifice. We must be ready, for the darkness that was sealed away is waking, and we must confront it before it is too late." The shipbuilder stood beside him, his mind set on the task ahead. "We will fight," he declared, his voice resolute. "We will fight for this land, for our families, for the future. We will not let the darkness return to claim what we have built." And with those words, the shipbuilder knew that the path ahead would not be easy. The storm that had been gathering on the horizon was now upon them, and the island's past had awakened to challenge them once more. But the shipbuilder was no stranger to battle. He had fought for the island once before, and he would fight again, this time not just for the future of the village, but for the very soul of the island itself. The darkness would be faced head-on, and whatever the cost, it would not be allowed to consume them. Not again. The air was thick with anticipation, every gust of wind carrying a whisper of the unseen forces that loomed just beyond the village. The shipbuilder stood at the edge of the cliffs, gazing out at the storm clouds gathering over the horizon. The sea, once a friend and companion to the island, now seemed hostile, its waves crashing against the shore with a violence that mirrored the turmoil rising within the hearts of the villagers. For weeks they had prepared, gathering weapons, tools, and supplies, fortifying the village and its boundaries. Yet no amount of preparation could fully ready them for the storm that was coming. It wasn't just the physical force of nature they faced. It was the awakening of something far older, far darker than they could comprehend. The runes that had been uncovered in the sands had set a chain of events in motion, and the village now stood at the precipice of a battle that would determine the fate of their home, their people, and perhaps the entire island. The shipbuilder could feel the weight of the village's collective fear resting on his shoulders. He had always been a creator, a builder, but now he found himself in the role of protector, the one tasked with leading his people through an uncertain future. The elder had spoken of the ancient darkness that had once ruled the island, a power that had been sealed away with the blood of their ancestors. Yet the shipbuilder had learned over time that blood alone could not hold such forces at bay forever. Time was the true keeper of secrets, and with the passing of centuries, the seals that bound the darkness had weakened. The figure that had been seen in the woods the one who seemed to vanish at will, was no mere wanderer. It was a harbinger, a messenger sent by the forces beneath the island, signaling that the time for the old powers to return had come. The shipbuilder's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind him. He turned to see the villagers assembling, their faces marked by a determination that had not been there when the first signs of trouble had appeared. Now they stood united, ready to face the coming storm, no matter how dire the consequences. His eyes fell on the elder, whose ancient eyes held a sadness, as if he too could see the inevitable end drawing closer. "It has begun," the elder said quietly, his voice heavy with the weight of knowledge passed down through generations. "The darkness that was sealed away is stirring. We have done all we can, but now the time has come for the island to decide. Its fate?" The shipbuilder nodded, his heart racing as he felt the surge of emotion in his chest. He had always believed that the future could be shaped by those who worked together, who fought for what they loved. But now, with the storm growing closer, he realized that some things were beyond their control. The island itself would decide whether it would be a place of life or of death. The villagers gathered around, each one looking to the shipbuilder. Or direction. He could see the fear in their eyes, but there was also something else, something stronger. There was resolve. They had come this far together, and they would face whatever came next with courage. "We stand together," the shipbuilder said, his voice steady and strong. "We fight for our home. We fight for our families. We fight for the future. We will not let this island fall to the darkness again. We will face whatever comes, no matter the cost." The villagers murmured in agreement, their voices a unified chorus. The shipbuilder turned to face the rising storm, the wind howling in his ears, the distant crash of waves like the growl of some ancient beast awakening from a long slumber. The time for preparation was over. The time for action had arrived. They would not let fear dictate their fate. Together, they would stand and fight, each one a pillar in the wall that would hold back the storm. As the shipbuilder looked out over the waters, he could feel the pull of the island's ancient magic, the dark energy rising beneath the earth. He knew that what they faced now was not just a battle against nature, but against the very essence of the island itself. The island had always been a living thing, its heart beating beneath the surface, its secrets buried deep within the earth. And now, that heart was stirring, waking from its long slumber, bringing with it forces that no one could predict. The shipbuilder turned back to the villagers, his eyes meeting theirs with a quiet determination. He was no longer just a builder. He was a leader, a protector. And as the first raindrops began to fall, the thunder rumbling in the distance, he knew that the fate of the island and everything they had built now rested in their hands. The storm had arrived, and they would face it together, no matter the cost. The storm hit with a ferocity that seemed to shake the very foundations of the village, the wind howling through the trees and sending waves crashing against the shore with an intensity never before witnessed. The villagers, now gathered at the center of their stronghold, braced themselves for the trial that was rapidly unfolding before them. The shipbuilder stood at the forefront, his heart racing as he watched the once peaceful horizon now consumed by dark, swirling clouds. The sky had transformed into a canvas of black and gray, each flash of lightning illuminating the storm's power, while the sound of thunder resonated like the growl of a beast ready to unleash its fury. The elder, who had once spoken of ancient prophecies, now looked upon the scene with a grim expression. The darkness that had awakened from beneath the island's surface was no longer a whisper. It was real, tangible, and it had come to claim what was rightfully its own. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, an ominous vibration that seemed to come from the very heart of the island itself. The shipbuilder felt the pull of the earth beneath him, as if it were alive, aware of the impending danger, and yet somehow disconnected from the people who had once called it home. The time for uncertainty had passed. The battle for their lives had arrived. "This is it," the elder whispered, his voice barely audible above the storm. "The island's soul is awakening. It calls for us, calls for its old dominion, its forgotten reign." The shipbuilder looked around at the villagers, his friends, his family. Their faces were etched with determination, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They had prepared for this moment, but no amount of preparation could fully shield them from the wrath that was now bearing down on them. The storm, however, was not the only enemy they faced. From within the swirling mists, figures began to emerge, moving like shadows through the fog, their forms twisting and contorting with each gust of wind. The shipbuilder could feel a cold dread wash over him as he recognized the faces of those long-gone ancestors of the island, the first settlers who had bound their spirits to the land, their souls now awakened to reclaim what was theirs. But these were not the spirits of protectors. They were the vengeful ones. "They come for us," the elder muttered, stepping forward with a resigned sorrow in his eyes. "They were not meant to rise, but the island has called them, and they will not rest until we are claimed as part of its eternal darkness." The shipbuilder clenched his fists, the weight of his duty sinking deeper into his bones. He had always known that the island held secrets, that it was more than just land and sea. It was a living entity, full of untapped power. But now, standing in the midst of the storm, he realized that the very foundation of his world was built upon a fragile thread, one that had now been severed by forces beyond his control. The battle had come for the island's soul, and it would not relent until it had consumed everything. He could hear the villagers preparing behind him, gathering their weapons, ready to defend their homes, their families, and their future. But the shipbuilder knew that the true enemy was not just the storm or the shadows. It was the very island itself. The darkness that had once been sealed away was now awake, and it would stop at nothing to reclaim its lost dominion. The first of the shadows lunged forward, its form solidifying into a grotesque figure, a twisted mockery of the island's first settlers. With a guttural roar, it reached for the villagers, its bony fingers stretched out like talons ready to tear them apart. But the shipbuilder was ready. He drew his sword and stepped forward, meeting the creature head-on. The steel clashed with the darkness, the sound echoing through the storm like a battle cry. He felt the power of the creature reverberating through his sword, the weight of its ancient strength pushing against his resolve. But he did not falter. This was their home, and he would fight for it, no matter the cost. The battle raged on, each swing of his blade carving through the shadows, each strike fueled by the memories of those who had lived and died upon this land. The storm continued to lash out, the winds howling like a living creature, but the shipbuilder held his ground. He could hear the cries of the villagers around him, as they too fought to protect what was theirs, their resolve matching his own. With each fallen shadow, the storm seemed to grow fiercer, as if the land itself was fighting back against the inevitable. The shipbuilder's muscles ached, his breath labored, but he could not stop while the island still clung to its forgotten power. He could feel the island's soul, its ancient magic, pulling at him, urging him to surrender. But he resisted, for he knew that surrender was not an option. He was not alone in this battle. The villagers fought beside him, each one a testament to the strength and resilience of their people. The island may have awakened, but they would not let it claim them without a fight. The battle was not yet over. The storm still raged above them, and the shadows of the past lurked in every corner. But the shipbuilder knew one thing: he would not let the island swallow them whole. Not today, not ever. He raised his sword one final time, the storm crashing around him, and with a cry of defiance, he charged forward, determined to protect his home, his people, and the future that they had built together. The island may have awakened, but it would never conquer them. Not while they still stood as one. As the shipbuilder's sword gleamed with the intensity of the storm's fury, the wind howled and the earth beneath his feet trembled, as if the island itself were alive, fighting back against the very inhabitants it had once cradled in its embrace. The villagers fought valiantly around him, their faces grim with determination as they faced the shadows, twisted apparitions of ancient spirits who once walked the land, now awakened by the island's restless call. The shipbuilder's heart pounded in his chest as each swing of his sword cut through the air, his muscles straining with each strike. The creatures, former settlers of the island now transformed into vengeful spirits, howled in defiance, their hollow eyes fixed upon the villagers as they swarmed from all directions. The shipbuilder's gaze, however, remained focused on the elder, who stood at the center of the chaos, his hands raised as though attempting to communicate with the very forces that had summoned the storm. The elder's face was etched with sorrow and wisdom, his voice lost beneath the roar of the tempest. This is no ordinary battle, the shipbuilder thought, his eyes narrowing as he stepped forward, the weight of his duties settling upon him like the very storm that surrounded them. He could feel the air thickening with ancient energy, the island's heartbeat pulsing beneath the ground. The souls of the island's first settlers, long trapped beneath the earth's surface, had risen once again, and with them, a power that sought to claim all that stood before it. As the shipbuilder approached the elder, he heard the elder's words soft, barely a whisper above the storm. "The island is awakening," the elder said, his voice tinged with sadness. "It calls to its people, but they are no longer the same as they once were. We have disturbed its slumber, and now we must face the consequences." The shipbuilder clenched his sword, feeling the power of the words echoing through his chest. The island had been a protector, a source of strength and livelihood, but now it had become something else entirely. The elder's words struck him to his core. This was not just a battle of survival. It was a reckoning. The shipbuilders' eyes scanned the battlefield, where the villagers fought with all their might, their strength tempered by the knowledge that their homes, their families, their very future rested on their shoulders. He could hear the cries of children, the battle, cries of men, and the sorrowful wails of those who had already fallen to the wrath of the island's awakened spirits. But even amidst the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope. The villagers stood united, refusing to yield to the darkness that had descended upon them. The shipbuilder turned his gaze back to the elder, who seemed to be struggling against an unseen force. His hands were trembling, his face drawn with the weight of the knowledge he carried. "The island, it will not stop," the elder whispered, his voice breaking. "It will consume all of us if we cannot find a way to return its balance. The power we have awoken is too great for us to control." The shipbuilder's heart skipped a beat as he felt the weight of the elder's words. He had known this battle would come, but the true nature of their struggle, the battle for the island's soul itself, was something beyond his comprehension. He could feel the land beneath him shifting, as though it were alive, as though it were watching him. In that moment, he understood what had to be done. The sword in his hand was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of their last stand. This was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future of the island, for the future of their people. The shipbuilder turned to face the swirling darkness, his resolve hardening. He could hear the roar of the spirits, their cries echoing through the wind, but he did not flinch. He raised his sword high, its blade catching the faint light of the storm, and cried out to the villagers, "We will not surrender. The island will not take us without a fight." His voice rang out like a clarion call, and for a moment the storm seemed to pause, as though the island itself had heard him. The villagers responded with a unified roar, rallying around him, their weapons held high. Together, they fought against the storm, against the shadows, against the very forces that sought to tear them apart. The battle raged on, each strike, a testament to their determination, to their will to survive. But the shipbuilder knew that this was only the beginning. The island's power was not something to be reckoned with. It was ancient, untamable, and now it had turned its wrath upon them. The shipbuilder pressed forward, his every step driven by the knowledge that if they were to have any hope of survival, they would need to fight not just for their lives, but for the soul of the island itself. The shipbuilder turned his gaze back to the elder, who stood at the center of the storm, his hands now lowered as if in surrender. The elder had once spoken of a time when the island was whole, when the spirits of the land walked in harmony with the people. But now, the island had become something else, something dark, something unforgiving. The shipbuilder knew what had to be done. He had to find a way to restore balance, to return the island's soul to its rightful place, before the storm could consume them all. With his sword raised high, he charged forward once more, his heart full of determination. The battle for the island's soul was far from over, but as long as they stood together, they would fight until the very end. The island may have awakened, but it would never conquer them, not while they still fought for their home. The storm, relentless and unforgiving, continued to rage as the shipbuilder stood at the heart of the battlefield, his sword heavy in his grip, his breath shallow with the weight of exhaustion and determination. The island, once a protector, had turned against them, its very essence twisted by the forces that had been awoken. The battle seemed endless, as shadows, once human, now shaped by vengeance, emerged from the depths of the land to strike at the hearts of those who dared defy. The island's awakening. But through the chaos, the shipbuilder could feel the pulse of the land beneath him, a heartbeat that, though strained, was still alive. The ground trembled with the power of the island, but there was something else beneath the storm's fury, something familiar. The shipbuilder's mind raced as the elder's words echoed in his ears, reminding him of the ancient balance that had once held the island together. The island's heart, the very core of its being, had been disturbed, but it was not beyond saving. He could feel it now, the rhythm of the island's pulse, faint yet strong, calling to him like an ancient whisper. It was as if the land itself recognized him, as if it had been waiting for him to understand its pain. The shipbuilder knew that if the heart of the island could be awakened, the storm could end, and balance could be restored. His eyes darted across the battlefield, where the villagers, their faces smeared with sweat and dirt, fought against the ever-growing darkness that threatened to consume them all. They were tired, their strength nearly spent, but they fought with every ounce of energy they had left. The shipbuilder's heart ached for them. Their hope was fading, but he could not afford to give in. He turned away from the chaos, searching for something, anything that might give them the strength they needed to survive. Then he saw a glimpse of light through the storm, a shimmering glow that seemed to rise from the earth itself. It was faint at first, but it grew brighter, its warmth spreading through the air like a beacon, cutting through the darkness. The shipbuilder's heart quickened as he realized what it was, the island's heart, pulsing with life, glowing from the depths of the earth. Without thinking, he pushed forward, his feet carrying him toward the source of the light, his sword held firmly at his side. As he moved, the wind seemed to shift, the storm's fury subsiding as the island's heartbeat grew louder, stronger. The shipbuilder's resolve deepened, and with each step, he felt the island's pain and sorrow, its desperate cry for healing. He knew that he was the one who could restore balance, that he was the one who could bring peace to the land. As he approached the glowing heart of the island, the ground beneath him began to tremble once more. But this time, it was different. The earth was not angry. It was alive with energy, with the force of something ancient and powerful, something beyond their understanding. The shipbuilder knelt before the heart of the island, his sword now lying across his lap, his hands trembling as he reached out toward the glowing pulse. It was warm, as though the island was alive, breathing with him, and in that moment, he felt a deep connection, a bond that spanned across time, a link between the land and its people, its history, its soul. The shipbuilder closed his eyes, and in the quiet of that moment, he felt the island's pain, its anger, its sorrow, and its longing. The heart of the island had been disturbed by the forces of greed, of time, of forgotten promises. But it could be healed, just as he had healed the ships he had built. With gentle hands, he placed his palms upon the earth, his voice a soft murmur as he spoke the words that had been passed down through generations. The words of the ancient ones, the ones who had first forged the bond between the island and its people, the words that would restore harmony to the land. As the words left his lips, a sudden surge of energy coursed through his body, and the island's heartbeat quickened, syncing with his own. The storm above them began to calm, the shadows retreating into the earth, the darkness lifting like a veil. The villagers, sensing the change, paused in their struggle, their eyes drawn toward the glowing light emanating from the heart of the island. They stood in awe, their hope rekindled, as the land itself seemed to rise up in response to the shipbuilders' call. The island was healing, its balance being restored, and with it, the storm began to subside, its fury turning into a gentle breeze. The shipbuilder opened his eyes and stood, his body still trembling with the power of the earth beneath him. He could feel the island's gratitude, its pulse now steady and strong. It was no longer a place of anger or vengeance. It had returned to its natural state. Its soul awakened, and the land was at peace once more. As the storm cleared, the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, casting a golden light over the land. The villagers, once weary and broken, now stood tall, their faces filled with hope and gratitude. The shipbuilder turned toward them, his heart swelling with pride. They had survived. Together, they had faced the darkness, and together they had restored the island to its rightful place. The battle had been long, but it was over, and with the island's heart now at peace, they would rebuild, stronger and more united than ever before. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, the once war-torn island now stood calm, bathed in the soft glow of a new beginning. The shipbuilder stood at the edge of the cliff, his weathered hands gripping the railing, eyes fixed on the lie. Expansive sea below. The journey, one of trials and triumphs, had brought him here to this peaceful moment, where the world seemed to hold its breath in anticipation of what lay ahead. The island, ravaged by storms of nature and human conflict, had been restored, its wounds healed by the collective strength of its people. The shipbuilder had led them through the darkest times, guiding them with a steady hand and unwavering heart. And now, with the last of the great battles fought, he could finally breathe freely. In the distance, the village came into view, its streets lined with newly constructed homes, its markets bustling with life, and the laughter of children ringing through the air, a sound he hadn't heard in years. The people, once fractured and scattered, had come together in unity, forging bonds that would endure long after the shipbuilder's time. The ships, which had once carried them away from their homeland, now brought them back, each one a symbol of the island's rebirth. The shipbuilder had restored not just the land, but the very essence of their culture, their hope, their resilience, and their unwavering belief in the future. And now, standing at the threshold of this new dawn, he understood the true weight of what they had achieved. It was not just the physical restoration of the island, but the healing of its spirit, the reclamation of its heart. As he looked out over the peaceful waters, the shipbuilder felt the weight of his years, of the lives lost and those that had been saved, and the overwhelming sense of pride in what had been accomplished. The darkness was finally gone, and in its place, a future full of possibilities stretched before them. The journey had been long, but it was not the end. With the foundation now set, the island and its people were ready to step into a new era, one built on the lessons learned, the hardships overcome, and the love that bound them together. The shipbuilder smiled, his heart swelling with a sense of peace he had long yearned for, as he finally allowed himself to let go of the past and embrace the future. The island had been restored, but more importantly, its people had been restored stronger, wiser, and united. As he turned to walk back into the village, the sounds of the sea calling him, he knew that his work was done. His legacy, forged in the fires of adversity, would live on through the generations to come. The island was not just a place, but a symbol, a beacon of hope, of resilience, and of the enduring power of the human spirit. And so, with one last glance at the sea, the shipbuilder stepped forward, leaving behind the weight of the past, embracing the light of the future, knowing that he had fulfilled his purpose. The end was not truly the end, but rather the beginning of something even greater, a new chapter in the story of his people, a story that would continue to be written long after the shipbuilder had sailed into the sunset.